Chapter 121. Oh! Nayland Mayer raised her eyebrows, but she was still as charming as ever. Behind her, the King of Shadows had already come to Jiang Chen's side. His voice was as cold as the cold wind. Don't be rude to the lady boss, or else kill. However, Jiang Chen didn't mind at all. There was no fear in his eyes. He even leaned forward and his body was almost sticking to Nayland Mayer's body. Nayland Mayer focused, but didn't avoid it. Because Jiang Chen whispered in her ear, there are a total of 16 professions in the world. But some professions are too rare and have been neglected or even forgotten. And among the forgotten professions, there is a profession called war dancer. When Nayland Mayer heard this, her expression remained calm, but her heart started to palpitate. Because, as Jiang Chen said, she was a war dancer, a profession that was forgotten by people in this world. Even if one searched the entire world, it would be very hard to find a second war dancer. And war dancers' combat power wasn't very outstanding, but they could help others. What was war dance? A battle could be a dance, and a dance could be a battle. And war dancers' strongest ability was to help others, helping others to improve their spiritual power and even cultivation. A cup of broken water was indeed water. However, Nayland Mayer mixed a trace of the war dancer's power into this cup of water. In this way, after everyone drank it, their spiritual power was improved. Sister can spend a lot of money. Nayland Mayer gently pushed Jiang Chen away. She bit her slender finger with her red lips, as if she was teasing Jiang Chen. Can you afford to raise sister? And I can't. Jiang Chen thought for a moment and smiled bitterly. I can't even afford to raise myself. As soon as these words came out, young Lord Chen and the rest rolled their eyes. If it were them, they wouldn't need to think and would nod on the spot. They could definitely raise Nayland Mayer, this demon, but Jiang Chen was actually so straightforward and said that he couldn't afford to raise her. Of course, it was one thing for him to be unable to afford it, but he was actually pretending to be poor. Then, when you can afford to raise me, come and find me again, Nayland Mayer said with a smile. After which, she swayed her slender waist and left the third floor. After Nayland Mayer left, a strange light flashed in Luo Tianchong's eyes. In the depths of his eyes, there was a burning desire. However, he did not say a word and turned to leave. The young man from the Clear Sky High sect shook his head and left. As you can see, I really need money now. At this moment, Jiang Chen looked at young Lord Chen and said, now that there are no outsiders, we can settle the matter between us. Is it possible to pay to avoid a disaster? Young Lord Chen shuddered. He glanced at young Lord Luo and said, he has a share too? Big cousin, you're not kind, young Lord Luo said indignantly. Previously, young Master Luo did not say anything and kept a low profile, afraid that Jiang Chen would notice him. Now, young Lord Chen actually diverted the trouble to him. All right, back then in the Northern Ming Hall, we also had some grudges, Jiang Chen said mockingly. What do you mean? Are the two of you planning to pay to avoid a disaster, or pay with your lives? Pay to avoid a disaster. Pay to avoid a disaster. At this moment, young Lord Chen and young Lord Luo were very direct. They did not lack money, so why should they pay with their lives? This is the Spirit Stone card of the Bank of the Universe. There are 60 million top-grade Spirit Stones inside. Young Lord Luo was very decisive. He took out a golden card and handed it to Jiang Chen. Only 60 million? Jiang Chen frowned. He felt that it was a little unrealistic to want to raise Nayland Mayer with 60 million. After all, Nayland Mayer sold a cup of broken wine here for millions of Spirit Stones, or even tens of millions of Spirit Stones. I only have so much. Young Lord Luo felt wronged and asked weakly, why don't you wait a few days, and I will get someone to send it over? Okay. Jiang Chen nodded and said, I am not afraid of you playing any tricks. This is the Spirit Stone card of the Bank of the Universe. There are 200 million top-grade Spirit Stones inside. Young Lord Chen took out a Spirit Stone card and asked, is that enough? Not enough. This time, Jiang Chen shook his head directly. He said, Is the life of the bank of the world's young master worth so little? Damn. Young Lord Chun cursed in his heart, but he still looked respectful on the surface. He asked softly, "Then how much is enough?" When Jiang Chen heard this, he thought about it and said, "Why don't you pay for me to raise Nayland Mayer from now on?" Young Lord Chun was stunned. He calculated in his heart, how many spirit stones would this cost? However, before young Lord Chun could react, a rune condensed on Jiang Chen's fingertip, and he pressed it against young Lord Chen's forehead. Instantly, the seal landed. 10 days, think about it slowly. Jiang Chen teased. If you don't agree, you don't have to find me. Just dig a hole and bury yourself. After saying this, Jiang Chun turned around and was prepared to head to the Nine Palace tomb. When he turned around, Jiang Chen stopped and said, "No one can undo this seal. It will explode in 10 days and it will take your life. If you don't believe me, you can try. But if you forcefully undo the seal, you will die even faster." Young Lord Chen's face was as black as ink. He didn't expect that Jiang Chun would place a seal on him just like that. What should he do now? It would take at least a month to rush back to the Bank of the Universe headquarters from solitary North City. Not to mention whether or not the elders in the Bank of the Universe had the ability to undo the seal. Even if they did, when he arrived, his bones would have rotted. Why did he only seal you and not me? Young Lord Luo asked. "Oh, right. I nearly forgot about you." Just at that moment, Jiang Chen walked up from the second floor with a smile on his face. A rune shone on his fingertips. "Don't resist, otherwise I will kill you on the spot. My mouth is so cheap." Young Lord Luo's heart was about to bleed. He really wanted to slap himself? Young Master Luo had no choice but to silently accept the sealing rune. After that, Jiang Chen left and didn't bother about the two brothers. Anyways, the two of them had their own thoughts and knew how to deal with this matter. Nayland Mei was the only one who gave Jiang Chen a headache. Bifeng Yu spent money to become my disciple, but now I unexpectedly have to spend money to get a disciple. Jiang Chen shook his head while walking on the street. I, a divine king, am getting worse and worse. Something happened. Two monsters charged out from the Nine Palace tomb, and their strength is comparable to King Realm experts. They are blocking the entrance. The major sects have all returned with broken swords. Several Zone Realm experts have already died. Along the way, Jiang Chen heard a few pieces of news. Jiang Chen didn't care about that. After all, since the tomb was opened, there would be a way to enter. As for how to enter, that would depend on their own abilities. Chapter 122. The Nine Palaces tomb was the ruins of the Nine Palaces shrine. No one was sure what was inside. However, in such a tomb, there would definitely be a lot of good things. And in a place like Bega City, once the things in the Nine Palaces tomb were unearthed, they would undoubtedly be treasures. It was precisely because of this that all the major sects took action one after another, trying their best to obtain the treasures in the Nine Palaces tomb. However, things did not go as planned. Before they entered, they attracted the two demonic beasts in the Nine Palaces tomb and suffered heavy casualties. Jiang Chen did not care. Anyway, he was not interested in the Nine Palaces tomb. The only thing he was interested in was to confirm whether the Nine Palaces shrine in the Godless Continent and the Nine Palaces shrine in the Nine Heavens Divine World were the same, and whether they were related. After all, the Nine Palaces shrine in the Nine Heavens Divine World was destroyed overnight, and there were many unusual secrets hidden inside. Jiang Chen wanted to explore it and find out what was going on. The City Lord's mansion invited two young people, very powerful. One is a fatty, and the other is a great beauty. Their looks are too beautiful, comparable to Nayland Mayer, the lady boss of Broken Cup Restaurant. Walking and walking, Jiang Chen suddenly heard these few words in his ears. At this moment, Jiang Chen frowned. Without thinking, he knew that the fatty and the beauty were most likely Jiang Lu and Bifeng Yu. I told you to stay in Xuanzuan's sect, not obedient? Jiang Chen thought to himself, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. It's necessary to let you suffer a little. After that, Jiang Chun left Bega City and headed towards the location of the Nine Palaces tomb. Now, the matter of the Nine Palaces tomb had caused a hubbub. Although only the 6 strongest sects in the area of Bega City and the City Lord's mansion could enter, many busybodies also went to take a look. Who knew they could still pick up some benefits? In this way, naturally, someone inquired about the location of the Nine Palaces tomb. This was no longer a secret. Jiang Chun set off from Bega City and hurried on for days. Until 2 days later, he arrived at the canyon 3,000 miles away from Bega City. The canyon was nameless and desolate, but because of the Nine Palaces tomb, it was packed with people. There were cultivators of all realms present. Even the elders and sect masters of the Azure Sword sect, Black Mountain sect, and Longsong sect were present. After Jiang Chun arrived, he walked through the crowd and casually found a place to stand. Looking into the distance, Jiang Chun saw Bega Ho, Jiang Lu, and Bai Fengyu near the Green Sword Gate. These 2 brats really don't know what's good for them. Jiang Chun frowned slightly. If the Nine Palace Shrine of the Wuxing continent was really related to the Nine Palace Shrine of the Ninth Heaven Divine Realm, then this tomb must be filled with danger. Even Jiang Chun did not have the confidence to enter and exit safely. If you're not from the 6 great sects, leave immediately. Retreat 1,000 meters away. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. At this moment, several elders of the 6 major sects spoke up and gave the order to expel them. Although the surrounding people were unhappy, this was the solitary North City area. The 6 major sects had the absolute right to speak and deterrence. In an instant, the surrounding people retreated until they were 1,000 meters away before they stopped. At this moment, there were only a dozen people left in the canyon. The Demon Hunters Association, the city governor's mansion, and a few people from the 6 major sections. Jiang Chun was standing alone in a place. He didn't utter a single word. He had even disguised himself. Unless someone had a treasure like the Mirror of Delusion, no one would be able to recognize him. "Kid, why are you still standing here? Get lost!" An elder of the Azure Sword Gate shouted angrily, pointing outside the canyon, and said coldly to Jiang Chun, "Get lost quickly. Otherwise, you'll stay here forever. This place belongs to your Azure Sword Gate?" Jiang Chun squinted and said disdainfully, "If I don't want to leave, who can make me leave? You're just a little kid. Who do you think you are?" The elder of the Azure Sword Gate shouted angrily. He immediately raised his hand, and a palm print fell on Jiang Chun. "You're courting death." Jiang Chun narrowed his eyes, and his eyes were cold. He already had a grudge with the Azure Sword Gate. Now that the elder of the Azure Sword Gate had attacked, Jiang Chun naturally would not retreat. However, before he could do anything, young Lord Chun suddenly appeared in front of Jiang Chun. Then he pushed out his palm. The palm print was like a jade seal, and it dissolved the elder's attack. "The Azure Sword Gate is so arrogant. You even dare to attack my brother?" Young Lord Chun said coldly. He waved his hand and took out a black token. The moment the token was taken out, the surrounding people's expressions became strange, and fear appeared in their eyes. "So it's the young master of the Bank of the World. Sorry for the disrespect." After a moment of silence, the elder of the Azure Sword Gate cupped his hands and said politely, "This is all a misunderstanding." "Dog eyes," young Lord Chun said coldly. He then looked at Jiang Chun and asked, "Are you okay?" Jiang Chun was speechless when he heard this. What could happen to him? Even if young Lord Chun did not attack, he would be fine. In fact, if young Lord Chun did not attack, he would be a dead man now. "What are you doing? Are you kissing my ass?" Jiang Chun glanced at him and curled his lips. "My condition is still the same as before. Unless you pay to help me raise Nayland Mayer, you can wait for your death." Young Lord Chun was speechless. His face darkened as he said with difficulty, "I really can't afford to raise her. Think of a way yourself," Jiang Chun said in annoyance. "How can the young master of the Bank of the World be so poor?" Young Lord Chun opened his mouth but did not know what to say. After all, he was only a young master, and there were several older brothers above him. Moreover, he was not in charge of the Bank of the World. So how much money could he use? Wait until I get the treasures in the Nine Palaces tomb. Then I can help you raise Nalan Mayer, young Lord Chun said sternly. For the sake of his life, he had to obtain some treasures from the Nine Palaces tomb. Otherwise, he would not be able to raise Nalan Mayer. You apologize to me? At this moment, Jiang Chen no longer cared about young Lord Chun. He looked at the elder of the Qingjian sect and said, You attacked me before. Do you think a misunderstanding can be resolved? Your Excellency, I didn't know that you were young Lord Chen's brother. If I knew, I wouldn't have attacked. The elder hurriedly said, Please forgive me. Forgive? Jiang Chen raised his brows and said, I never forgive. I only care about money. As he spoke, Jiang Chen extended his hand and waved it. He said, Give me 10 million top-grade spirit stones, and I'll let it go. Otherwise, we'll start a war. Hearing this, the faces of the Qingjian sect people turned black. The elder was even more confused. One had to know that in the region of solitary North City, even the richest city lord's mansion could not take out 10 million top-grade spirit stones. Although the Qingjian sect was strong in the region of solitary North City, their foundation was not that deep. Even if they sold the entire Qingjian sect, they would not be able to gather 10 million top-grade spirit stones. Chapter 123. You don't go overboard. At this moment, the new sect master of Azure Sword sect said coldly, This is solitary North City, not the headquarters of the Bank of the World. What do you mean? At this moment, before Jiang Chen could say anything, young Lord Chen shouted angrily. This was because the new sect master of Azure Sword sect was looking down on the Bank of the World. There's going to be a good show. Heh, I didn't expect the new sect master of Azure Sword sect to be such a rash person. He can even say such words. How stupid. The Bank of the World's power is spread all over the world. No one said anything, but they were laughing coldly in their hearts. They wanted to see how Azure Sword sect would deal with this. At the same time, young Lord Luo also entered the canyon. Behind him was a long-haired man in a black robe. Big cousin Uncle Chin is here. Young Lord Luo walked over. The long-haired man behind him bowed to young Lord Chun and said, Greetings, young lord. Uncle Chun, you came at the right time. Someone here is looking down on the Bank of the World and is challenging the dignity of the Bank of the World. Young Lord Chun narrowed his eyes and pointed a finger at the new sect master of the Azure Sword sect. Kill him. After all, young Lord Chun was the young lord of the Bank of the World. In terms of status, how could the people of solitary North City compare to him? Although he was well-behaved in front of Jiang Chen, in front of others, this guy was a living example of a young master. Facing the provocation and contempt of the new sect master of Azure Sword sect, young Lord Chun had to consider the reputation of the Bank of the World, even if not for his own face. At this moment, Uncle Chin's face was gloomy. Killing intent surged in his eyes. He looked at the new sect master of Azure Sword sect and said coldly, The Bank of the World is not something you can talk about. Senior, the new sect master of Azure Sword sect hurriedly said. He knew he had caused trouble. However, before he could say anything, he saw a fist light rushing over. Boom! Following a loud explosion, the crowd saw the fist light resembling a golden dragon as it slammed into the new sect master of the Qingjian sect. Then, his entire body exploded and turned into a rain of blood. King Realm. He's a martial king. The surrounding crowd's expression changed greatly. Facing a martial king, they all felt fear in their hearts. Fortunately, after Uncle Chun killed the sect master of the Azure Sword sect, he didn't do anything. He only looked at young Lord Chun, as if asking for his opinion. Listen to him. Young Lord Chen pointed at Jiang Chun and said, This is my boss. Oh, boss? Uncle Chun was surprised. He knew young Lord Chen's character. Normally, he liked to pretend to be noble and virtuous. Under normal circumstances, no one could enter his eyes. Since that was the case, the young man in front of him must be extraordinary. At least, that was what Uncle Chen thought. First, ask them where the entrance to the Nine Palaces tomb is, Jiang Chen said softly. It's just ahead, in the deepest part of the canyon. There's a crack in the mountain wall, and inside it is the Nine Palaces tomb. Yes, it's inside. However, there are two powerful beasts outside the cracks. They should be the guardian beasts of the Nine Palace tomb. After seeing what happened to the sect leader of the Azure Sword clan, none of them dared to offend Jiang Chen's group. Moreover, they wanted to curry favor with them. After all, the highest realm among them was only at the Upper Zone realm. As for the Upper Zone realm, it was impossible for them to defeat the two guardian beasts. Lead the way, Jiang Chun said softly as he glanced at Jiang Lu and Bai Fengyu. Jiang Chun saw Jiang Lu winking at him. This little fatty recognized me so quickly? Jiang Chun thought to himself, as expected of someone who grew up with Jiang Lu. Even a disguise couldn't fool him. Since Jiang Lu knew, Bai Fengyu probably knew as well. Sure enough, when Jiang Chun looked at Bai Fengyu, he found that the other party's eyes were full of resentment. It was as if he was a little wife who had been wronged. Are you kidding me? I just left you in the whole venerable sect. Is it necessary for you to look at me in such a way? Jiang Chun complained to himself, while wearing a calm expression. He followed the crowd and walked toward the crack on the mountain wall. Along the way, young Lord Chun and young Lord Luo followed beside Jiang Chun. The two of them were concerned about his well-being, which surprised the group. Who is that kid? The young lord of the Bank of the Universe, the young lord of the 800 miles Black River, is actually so respectful to him. He must have a great background. Everyone guessed, and soon they arrived at the crack in the mountain wall. Looking around, there was a majestic mountain in the depths of the canyon. The crack extended from the top of the mountain to the ground, like an inverted abyss, emitting a five-colored light. A giant white wolf and a giant red tiger were sitting cross-legged in an open space in front of the crack. They were staring at Jiang Chun and his companions with hostility. These two demonic beasts are of the King realm. We are no match for them, Marquis Begu said awkwardly. He looked at Uncle Chun and asked, Senior, can you, Uncle Chun, do it? Young Lord Chun was decisive. He knew that if he suppressed these two beasts today, he would not be able to enter the Nine Palaces tomb. Uncle Chun heard and did not say anything. He rushed forward, and a fierce tiger shadow appeared on his body. This fierce tiger shadow was snow white, and there was a swastika mark between its eyebrows. It was different from ordinary white tigers. Dao Soul, Thousand Buddha, White Tiger. Dao Soul Board, 367th. At this moment, everyone was shocked. There were thousands of Dao Souls in the world, and those that could be ranked in the top 500 of the Dao Soul board were all top-notch. With such a Dao Soul, there was no need to doubt Uncle Chin's strength. He rushed out, and the spiritual energy in his fists surged. Two rays of fist radiance shot out. The fist radiance was like two white tigers, but it carried a divine Buddhist light, and there was even the sound of chanting. Boom! Boom! Then, with two explosions, the two King Realm demonic beasts were killed before they could even fight back. Powerful, Jiang Chen thought. Uncle Chin's strength was enough to be ranked in the top 3 in Bega City. Perhaps only the King of Darkness behind Nalan Mei would be able to contend against him. Continue to lead the way. Jiang Chun waved his hand and asked, Shouldn't you show me the Nine Palaces maze? It's with me, Marquis Begu said hurriedly and handed the Nine Palaces maze to Jiang Chun respectfully. Jiang Chun looked at the Nine Palaces maze, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. This was because although the route to the Nine Palaces tomb was drawn on the Nine Palaces maze, as well as the various traps and restrictions in the tomb, it was still fresh. However, if one took a closer look, they would see that the drawings on the Nine Palaces maze were all freshly drawn. It was just that someone had deliberately aged it. Ordinary people might not be able to see through it, but Jiang Chen's discerning eyes were sharp enough to see through it. Chapter 124. Interesting. It seems like Marquis Begu has teamed up with the Monster Hunters Union to kill the 6 sections. Jiang Chun did not say anything, but he was even more wary of Marquis Begu. Let's go in together. Jiang Chun did not expose him. He returned the Nine Palace maze diagram to Marquis Begu and walked forward. However, Marquis Begu shook his head and said, "The Nine-Palace tomb is behind the crack. There are special restrictions and rules inside, so we can't go in." "Yes, only those below the Grandmaster realm can go in," the sect leader of the Black Mountain sect said. Jiang Chen nodded and did not say anything. He led young Lord Chun and young Lord Luo forward. Then, the six sects, the Monster Hunters Union, the Martial Pavilion, and the City Governor's Mansion followed behind them. After a few breaths, Jiang Chun was the first to enter the crack. He stretched out his hands and grabbed young Lord Chun and young Lord Luo's shoulders and rushed forward. He was like a ray of light. When the people behind them entered the crack, they could no longer see Jiang Chun and the other two. "What are you doing? Do you know the correct way? If you bring us in rashly, we will die if we trigger the restrictions," young Lord Chun and young Lord Luo exclaimed, but they did not dare to struggle. After all, they had Jiang Chen's seal in their bodies. Jiang Chun could take their lives at any time. "If you want to get rich, follow me," Jiang Chen said. "Marquis Bega's map is fake." "What? He dares to do that? How dare he? Using a fake map. Is he trying to kill us?" Young Lord Chun and young Lord Luo were shocked and furious. "He is not trying to kill us. He is trying to kill the six sects and the Martial Pavilion," Jiang Chen said. After all, Marquis Begu did not know that young Lord Chun and the others would come here. "But are we really going in like this?" Young Lord Chen asked. "Follow me and you will not die. If you follow them, you will die," Jiang Chen said. "Marquis Begu's men won't die, but the rest of them will be killed." "Marquis Begu, how dare you? If this matter is exposed, would the six great sects and the Martial Pavilion let him off?" Young Lord Luo said in a grave voice. When Jiang Chen heard this, he didn't say anything. He continued to move forward quickly. After all, what did it have to do with him if the top six sects and the Martial Pavilion were going to deal with Bega Ho? Rushing all the way, Jiang Chen's spiritual power spread out like a big net, enveloping the surroundings. As long as there were restrictions or formations, he would bypass them. He did not need the guidance of the nine labyrinth maze. This shocked young Lord Chun and young Lord Luo. They wondered if Jiang Chun had come to the Nine Palaces tomb before, or did he have some special methods. "There's someone ahead." All of a sudden, Jiang Chun paused and focused his gaze in front of him. 100 meters away from them, there was a flickering light. After passing through the light, they would be able to walk out of the crack and enter the real Nine Palaces tomb. However, in the light, there was a figure sitting there with his legs crossed. Furthermore, the person's eyes were open. There were runes in his pupils like stars in the sky. "Let's hide first." Jiang Chen stopped in his tracks. After a slight hesitation, he led young Lord Chun and young Lord Luo to the other side and hid behind a huge rock. "Who is that person? Is he dead or alive?" "There's someone alive in the Nine Palaces tomb?" Young Lord Chun and young Lord Luo asked, but they were nervous. After all, anyone would be nervous if they met someone with his eyes open in the tomb. "He's dead," Jiang Chen explained. "However, he will come back to life when someone comes close. He's a puppet, an Emperor Realm puppet." "What? A puppet? Emperor Realm?" "There's a special order in the Nine Palaces tomb. It can't exceed the Zone Realm." Young Lord Chun and young Lord Luo exclaimed. "That's a puppet. It's dead. Perhaps the order here is only useful to the living and not to the dead," Jiang Chen said. At this moment, Jiang Chen gestured for them to keep quiet. He sensed that someone was coming from behind. However, when he saw who it was, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. That was because there were only two people, Jiang Lu and Bai Fengyu. "Where's Old Master?" "That's right. Along the way, I didn't see Master at all. Did something happen to Master?" Jiang Lu and Bai Fengyu spoke as they looked around, looking for Jiang Chen. "I'm here." Jiang Chen walked out with a smile and asked, "Where are the people from the six major sects and the Martial Pavilion? Are they all dead?" "Boss! Master!" As soon as they saw Jiang Chen, they became excited and ran to his side. Bai Fengyu, in particular, had a resentful look on her face, and her face was slightly red. No one knew what she was thinking. That old bastard Marquis Begu gave us a sum of money to cheat the people from the 6 major sects and the Martial Pavilion. Zhang Lu said awkwardly, "This. We thought that you were short of money, so we helped Marquis Begu. We definitely didn't kill them." Bai Fengyu hurriedly explained. After that group of people entered the crack, they started fighting after taking a few steps. Everyone wanted to take the treasures in the 9 Palaces tomb for themselves. When Zhang Lu and I saw that they were fighting, we didn't care about them and ran in. Now, I guess that group of people are almost crippled. A few of them are dead. Hearing this, Jiang Chen nodded and warned, "You can kill them. However, you can only kill enemies. There's enmity between me, the Martial Pavilion, and the Azure Sword sect. I have no objections if you kill them. However, there's no deep enmity between me, the Monster Hunters Association, and the other 5 sections. If you kill them for the sake of Marquis Bega's money, then you will be killed by me." Seeing Jiang Chen's serious expression and words, Zhang Lu and Bai Fengyu's expressions turned serious, and they hurriedly nodded. At the same time, the two of them were scared. Fortunately, they didn't have any bad intentions. Otherwise, if they really killed the people from the 5 sects and the Monster Hunters Association, then Jiang Chen wouldn't let them off easily. "Boss, don't worry. We are just like you. We have principles," Zhang Lu said seriously. Jiang Chen was very pleased to hear this. He patted Zhang Lu's shoulder and said seriously, "You have to have principles, but first of all, you have to help me become rich. Boss, as long as we get the treasures in the 9 Palaces tomb, we can really become rich." Zhang Lu's eyes shone with a golden light. He seemed to have been infected by Jiang Chen and had become a money grubber. How naive. Jiang Chen curled his lips and pointed at the figure sitting cross-legged in the light. "Have you seen the real 9 Palaces maze? How do you deal with the person in front? Do you know?" Chapter 125. After the light was the entrance to the 9 Palace tomb. However, the puppet inside the light gave Jiang Chen a headache. After all, its realm was much higher than his. Even if he used forbidden arts, it would be difficult to suppress the other party. Moreover, forbidden arts were against the heavens. Jiang Chen had been using forbidden arts before, and there was already a trace of filth in his soul. If he used forbidden arts again, once the filth accumulated to a certain extent, the heavenly punishment would descend. That kind of heavenly punishment was extraordinary. Jiang Chen was not confident that he could survive it. Therefore, unless it was a last resort, Jiang Chen would not use forbidden arts again. "This puppet is easy to deal with," Zhang Lu said. "It's recorded in the 9 Palace maze." As he spoke, Zhang Lu took a few steps forward and came before the light. He formed a seal with both hands, and rays of divine light spread out. Divine light flowed and condensed in front of him. Then a rune appeared, and like a cloud, it floated and landed on the puppet's body. Buzz! With a tremor, the puppet turned into a rain of light and disappeared. So simple. Jiang Chen was stunned. After thinking about it carefully, it made sense. After all, the 9 Palace maze was the key to entering the 9 Palace tomb. On it was recorded how to smoothly enter the 9 Palace tomb. Then, Jiang Chen and the others advanced, passing through the light and entering the real 9 Palace tomb. As soon as they entered the 9 Palace tomb, their field of vision widened. Looking around, it was like an underground palace. The buildings were towering, and there were even statues. The entire underground palace was filled with a layer of silver-white divine light, like a wisp of mist floating in the air. In front of Jiang Chen and the others, there was a road that led directly to the main hall of the underground palace. "Is there danger here?" Jiang Chen asked. "I don't know." Zhang Lu shook his head and said, "There's not much recorded in the 9 Palace maze, and there's no description of the things in the 9 Palace tomb. Then we can only rely on ourselves." Jiang Chen said in a low voice, "You guys stay here." Ever since he entered the 9 Palace tomb, Jiang Chen was certain that the 9 Palace Divine Palace of the Godless Continent was definitely related to the 9 Palace Divine Palace of the 9th Heaven Divine Realm. This was because Jiang Chen had seen these statues in the 9 Heavens Divine Realm before. There were even a few statues that Jiang Chun had seen in the Nine Heavens Divine World in the ruins of the Nine Heavens Divine Temple. If it had something to do with the Jiugong Shrine in the continent of the Nine Clouds, it was definitely extraordinary. As a graveyard, it was naturally guarded against the invasion of later generations. How could there be no danger at all? Boss, be careful, Jiang Lu said in a serious tone, but he did not follow. It was because he and Bai Fengyu both understood that if they followed, they would definitely drag Jiang Chen down. At that moment, Jiang Chen started walking along the main road. However, after taking a few steps, the surrounding statues suddenly trembled, and pieces of stone fell off. In just a few breaths' time, the rocks of the statues fell off and turned into living beings. Upon closer inspection, these living beings looked no different from the human race, but there was a blood-red eye between their eyebrows. The three-eyed divine tribe, Jiang Chen exclaimed in disbelief. This kind of creature belonged to the top race in the continent of the Nine Heavens, and it was actually here. The Nine Heavens divine realm had a long history. In the long river of history, there were a few races that could be said to be unparalleled, suppressing several eras. Among them, there was the three-eyed divine tribe. The three-eyed divine tribe was proficient in eye techniques, and their mental strength was extremely terrifying. There were even other three-eyed divine tribe members who, after the eye between their eyebrows awakened, would give birth to a special power. Buzz! Buzz! At that moment, with the awakening of dozens of three-eyed divine tribe members, a terrifying mental strength suddenly erupted in the underground palace. It was like an invisible tsunami, rushing towards Jiang Chun, and even Bai Fengyu and the others were drowned in it. Jiang Chun did not dare to hesitate, and retreated to the side of Jiang Lu and the others. His mental strength burst out, and a formation appeared. His hands formed a series of hand seals, and in 6 breaths' time, Jiang Chun set up a defensive formation around Jiang Lu and the others. Boss, what are these? Are they alive or dead? Jiang Lu exclaimed. This tomb had been sealed for a long time. How could there be living beings? Dead. They are all puppets, Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. But they are very difficult to deal with. They are the three-eyed divine tribe. As Jiang Chen spoke, he took a step forward and dashed out of the formation. The Emperor's vine appeared behind him. Many purple-golden vines shot toward the three-eyed divine clan as he waved his hands. Boom! Boom! However, the mental strength in the surroundings became more and more terrifying. The vines that shot out twisted in the air and then collapsed, unable to get close to the three-eyed divine tribe members. As expected of the three-eyed divine tribe, their mental strength is really strong, Jiang Chen exclaimed. But his mental strength was not weak either. Jiang Chen had achieved the highest level in each state. He had achieved perfection in all of them. His mind power was extraordinary too. Moreover, these three-eyed divine tribe members were all dead, puppets, and could not unleash their strength when they were alive. Buzz! At this moment, Jiang Chen's eyes flashed, and his mental strength condensed around him like sharp arrows. The sharp arrows floated in the air and merged with the Emperor's vines, then shot out again. It was like thousands of purple gold vines, shining with silver-white light. As they spread out, a series of explosions sounded in the air. This was the collision of formless mental strength, and even the air was distorted. Bai Fengyu and the others were pale. Even inside the formation, they could feel how terrifying the mental strength outside was. In their minds, a series of explosions sounded, shocking their minds. If not for this formation, Bai Fengyu and the others would have been shocked to death by the mental strength. As expected, we are a burden to boss again. Jiang Lu smiled bitterly. As master, of course he is more powerful than us, Bai Fengyu said, her beautiful eyes staring at Jiang Chun, and a trace of worry flashed across her eyes. Dao Soul, true myriad flower, thousand hands. At this moment, Jiang Chun formed a seal with both hands, and the Emperor's vine rapidly enlarged and grew, turning into a vine full of purple gold flowers. Then, the vine exploded, and many arms with purple gold flowers appeared. Boom! Boom! In the next second, countless arms stretched out in a straight line and slammed down in front of them. Like countless pillars, they fell from the sky, suppressing the group of three-eyed divine tribe members. Fortunately, I know the Tao soul skill of the Emperor's Vine. Otherwise, it would be really troublesome, Jiangchen said softly. In this world, there were many types of martial skills. Other than ordinary martial skills, there were also forbidden skills and Tao soul skills that were used with the Tao soul. Relatively speaking, forbidden skills were circulated in the world, but Tao soul skills were extremely rare. After all, there was only one Tao soul, and there were only two ways to have a Tao soul skill. Chapter 126. The first was when the previous person with the same Tao soul imparted their Tao soul skill to you before they died. The second was to comprehend and create it yourself. Jiang Chun had seen the person with the Emperor's Vine before and even asked for guidance on the Tao soul skill of the Emperor's Vine. Otherwise, how could Jiang Chun understand the Tao soul skill of the Emperor's Vine? At this moment, Jiang Chun looked around and realized that there was no movement, so he continued forward. He walked 30 meters and was only 300 meters away from the main palace. But at this moment, Jiang Chun stopped, because there was a statue in front of him. Furthermore, the stone on the statue had started to fall off and finally turned into a burly, three-eyed divine race member. Outsider, get lost! After this three-eyed divine race member woke up, he was not as numb as the previous three-eyed divine race member. On the contrary, this three-eyed divine race member seemed to have consciousness and could speak human language. Furthermore, the eye between this three-eyed divine race member's brows was shining with golden light. The pupil was like a crescent moon, emitting divine light. A three-eyed divine race member who has awakened his third eye? Jiang Chun was shocked. He did not expect that there would be a three-eyed divine race member overseeing this place. But after sensing carefully, Jiang Chun also heaved a sigh of relief. This three-eyed divine race member was still dead. It was just that he used some method to preserve a trace of consciousness. Senior, I'm not here to steal the treasures of the Nine Palace Shrine. I just want to find out some truth. Jiang Chun said, if you still have a trace of consciousness, can you tell me? Truth? What truth? The three-eyed divine race member frowned and then held his head with both hands, looking like he was in pain. After all, he was already dead and only a trace of consciousness was left. If he forcefully recalled the past and thought about some things, his spiritual power would be in chaos. The Nine Heavens divine world, the Nine Palace Shrine that dominated the entire Nine Heavens. Why was it destroyed overnight? What exactly happened? Jiang Chun asked. As soon as he said that, the three-eyed divine race member's eyes suddenly widened. The crescent moon in his pupil disappeared, and his face was filled with panic. He seemed to have thought of something, but he also seemed a little confused. Jiang Chun did not continue to speak, but waited quietly. Only after more than 10 breaths of time did this three-eyed god race member open his mouth. His voice was filled with great vicissitudes and sadness. He sighed and said, defeated so thoroughly. Facing the endless darkness, who can resist? Endless darkness? Who defeated the Nine Palace Shrine? Jiang Chun asked hurriedly. Boom! However, just as he finished speaking, the three-eyed divine being seemed to have collapsed due to the chaos in his mind. This made Jiang Chun speechless. Originally, he thought that he would be able to get some information out of this three-eyed god race. Unexpectedly, just by asking a question, it had already shattered. However, Jiang Chun also realized that something very serious must have happened to the Nine Palace Shrine back then. The endless darkness that the three-eyed god race spoke of most likely involved a lot of things. After sorting out his thoughts, Jiang Chun continued forward. This time, he did not encounter any danger along the way and walked all the way to the main hall. The main hall's door was open, but he could not see what was inside as though there was a barrier. There was a pair of footprints at the entrance of the main hall. Jiang Chun focused his gaze and looked at the pair of footprints. They should have been left behind a long time ago, at least tens of thousands of years ago. In that case, who came here tens of thousands of years ago, and why did they leave behind a pair of footprints? Was it someone from the Nine Palace Shrine? Or was it an outsider like him? I thought that I could break through the great Tao and stand at the peak of the nine heavens. I thought that I could transcend the sixth Tao after breaking the heavenly lock. But who knew that everything was a fog, and I couldn't see the path ahead? At that moment, a light rose from the pair of footprints. Following that, a blurry man with an indistinct appearance appeared from the footprints. He seemed to be looking into the distance, or at the ethereal great Tao. His voice was filled with confusion and desolation, as well as a hint of indignation and anger. "Successor, do you know what the great Tao is?" Suddenly, the man lowered his head and looked at Jiang Chun and asked, "A living person or a dead person?" Jiang Chun narrowed his eyes. This illusory figure was extraordinary and had a complete consciousness. What's the difference between being alive and being dead? If you can't transcend, you will always be a chess piece on the chessboard. The man sighed and asked again, "What is the great Tao?" "The great Tao?" Jiang Chun frowned. He had asked himself and many people this question before. In the end, before his death in his previous life, Jiang Chun understood and understood. "The great Tao is invincibility." Jiang Chun said, "The great Tao and the non-Taoists are just strength. Invincibility is the great Tao. If you are not invincible, you are like dust and ants. If you are not invincible, what is the point of talking about the great Tao? Are you qualified to talk about the great Tao?" As soon as he said this, the man was stunned for a moment. He did not expect this young man in front of him to have such an understanding of the great Tao. However, he shook his head and sighed. "I used to think so too. Many people in this world and in the long river of history thought so too. Unfortunately, you were wrong." The man sighed. After saying that, the man's figure gradually faded as if he was about to disappear. Before he disappeared, the man said, "When you know what the true great Tao is, come and find me here." Jiang Chun blinked when he heard that. He wondered if the great Tao he thought of was wrong. Moreover, Jiang Chun was even more puzzled. Who was this illusory figure? Was he alive or dead now? Buzz! At this moment, as the illusory figure dissipated, the barrier that enveloped the main hall disappeared as well. At this moment, Jiang Chun could see the scenery in the main hall. As far as the eye could see, the main hall was very empty. There was only a table. On the table, there was a ring and a book. Apart from that, there was nothing else. After observing outside the main hall for a while, Jiang Chun felt that there was no danger and entered the main hall. Arriving at the table, Jiang Chun first flipped through the book. Then, a trace of shock flashed through his eyes. That was because the book was a martial technique. One of the 6 great pupil techniques in the world. Yin-Yang pupil. Sun Moon Eye. Jiang Chun exclaimed. This pupil technique was known as the king of pupil techniques. Legend had it that only the three-eyed divine tribe knew how to cultivate it. However, after the three-eyed divine tribe disappeared, this pupil technique was lost as well. Jiang Chun did not expect to obtain the Yin-Yang pupil, Sun Moon Eye, after entering the Nine Palaces tomb this time. Yin and Yang transform into all things. The sun and moon illuminate the sky. 100 flowers bloom with a thought. The blue sky connects with one eye. Jiang Chun muttered softly. After putting away the martial technique, he picked up the ring. It was an interspatial ring. When Jiang Chun's mind power entered the interspatial ring, his eyes lit up and he almost drooled. That was because the interspatial ring was like a small world with countless supreme-grade spirit stones piled up. There were also countless treasures, weapons, all kinds of array diagrams, cultivation techniques, and martial techniques. Is this all the foundation of the Nine Palaces' sacred palace? Jiang Chun thought to himself. He was rich this time. Even the Bank of the World could not compare to him in terms of wealth. Chapter 127. Jiang Chun had obtained all the treasures of the Nine Palace Divine Temple. Now, his net worth and wealth were simply immeasurable. Of course, Jiang Chun was also very clear that spirit stones were common currency. If he really wanted to buy some treasures, he was afraid that he would have to exchange it with something of the same value. However, at least now Jiang Chun was rich. When I go out, I'll find Nayland Mayer and raise her. Jiang Chun laughed. After that, Jiang Chun strolled a few more times in the main hall. After finding nothing, he walked out. Next, Jiang Chun went to several other palaces, but they were all empty. It seems that the treasures of the 9-palace divine temple are all in this spatial ring. Jiang Chun whispered and returned to Jiang Lu and the others. He asked, "Are you all right? My injuries are not light." Jiang Lu's face was slightly pale. The mental strength from before was too terrifying. My mind is still in a trance, and I can't gather the spiritual power in my body. Me too. Bai Fengyu was slightly better, but at this moment, he had also lost the ability to fight. After all, there were so many three-eyed divine race puppets that burst out their mental strength at the same time. If Jiang Chun had not set up a formation, Bai Fengyu and the others would have been shocked to death. What about the two of you? Jiang Chun looked at young Lord Chun and young Lord Luo. At this glance, Jiang Chun felt that he had asked in vain. The two of them were supporting each other, their legs trembling. Their condition was obviously much worse than Jiang Lu's. "Let's go. Let's leave this place first," Jiang Chun said, and went back the way they came. However, before they could take a few steps, a few people came in front of them. Looking carefully, they were Yishui Shao of the Qingjian sect, Li Moru of the Heishan sect, and a disciple of the Chang'e sect. Jiang Chun had heard of these people before. They were the strongest disciples of these sections. "Did you just come out of the tomb?" Yishui Shao's body was stained with some blood, but his aura was majestic. Li Moru and the disciples of the Chang'e sect were also in good condition. It was obvious that the three of them had won the previous civil war. Moreover, they had retained their strength and were in peak condition. As for the others, there was no need to think too much about them. Since he didn't see them, they must be dead. "I just came out. What's the matter?" Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows and asked, "Is something the matter? Did you get the thing inside?" Li Moru asked coldly. A fierce light flashed in his eyes as he said, "Hand it over." Jiang Chun chuckled when he heard this. These three wanted to snatch his things? Was this even possible? "I don't want to hide it either. I don't want to waste time." Jiang Chun said softly, "Everything is in my hands. If you want it, come and get it if you have the ability." After saying that, Jiang Chun couldn't help but add, "But let me give you a piece of advice. If you want to take something, you'll have to risk your life." "Brat, no one here can help you. If we kill you here, the people outside will think that you were killed by the formation of the 9 Palaces tomb. We don't have to worry about anything." Li Moru and Yishui Shao sneered. Only the disciple of the Longsong sect frowned and shook his head. He said, "Since you got it, it's an opportunity, a kind of fate. I won't force you. I'll withdraw from this matter." After saying that, the disciple of the Longsong sect took a step back. However, when he stepped back, he added, "It's not that I'm afraid of you. You're very smart. At least this decision will allow you to live." Jiang Chun smiled. "From what I can see, apart from you, the spiritual energy in the other people's bodies has already dissipated. As long as we can beat you, everything will be ours." Li Moru said. Spiritual power burst out from his body, and a picture scroll condensed by spiritual power appeared in front of him. "The art sect?" Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows and was slightly surprised. "Fight!" At the same time, Yishui Shao roared. Spiritual power burst out from his body, and a violent aura appeared on his body. His eyes were blood red, and his hair was dancing in the wind. It was as if he was possessed. The crazy sect? Jiang Chun was stunned. He didn't expect these two people to be so strong. They were not ordinary cultivators. However, this was nothing to Jiang Chun. In his eyes, these two people were not a threat to him at all. Boom! Boom! In the next moment, before Jiang Chun could make a move, Yishui Shao rushed toward him. A violent aura burst out from his body, like a fierce tiger. When he punched out, his spiritual power turned into a millstone. As it rotated, the air was distorted, and there was a sonic boom. At the same time, Li Mora's fingertips moved and drew on the paper. In just a few breaths, a striped tiger appeared on the paper. It jumped out of the paper and pounced toward Jiang Chun. "What an ugly drawing," Jiang Chun said mockingly. "With your skills, you're really embarrassing the art sect." As he said that, he condensed his spiritual power, and an invisible spiritual power jumped in front of him. In the blink of an eye, a piece of paper appeared. Then, in the blink of an eye, a silver dragon soared out of the drawing paper. It stretched out its claws and directly crushed the striped tiger. Then, the silver dragon roared and swept its tail, shattering Yi Shuixiao's fist radiance. "Another one." Jiang Qin smiled and moved his fingertips in front of him. A dazzling, golden nine-headed lion appeared on the paper. "Roar! Roar!" 9 beastly roars burst out, and the nine-headed lion came out of the paper. Fire burst out from the 9 heads, and there was a sharp, golden aura. It turned into a sky full of golden swords, and they pressed down on Yi Shuixiao. "You're also from the art sect? So what? Today, your life is mine. The treasures in the 9 palaces tomb are also mine." Yi Shuixiao and Li Moru's eyes shone fiercely. As their spiritual power surged, each of them drew a taotai. They opened their mouths and swallowed the 9-headed lion. As for the other one, he moved horizontally and approached Jiang Chun. "Eye of the moon, lunar eclipse." At this moment, Jiang Chun shouted. In his left eye, his pupil changed and turned into a full moon. As his eye opened, a ray of moonlight seemed to burst out and shrouded Yi Shuixiao's body. Yi Shuixiao was shocked. He was shrouded in moonlight, and his whole body seemed to be imprisoned, unable to move. Moreover, there was a terrifying spiritual power in the moonlight that kept attacking his soul. In just 3 breaths' time, Yi Shuixiao couldn't hold on any longer. His soul trembled and collapsed. Eye of the sun, solar eclipse. At this moment, in Jiang Qin's right eye, a dazzling sun appeared. The sunlight was like divine light, and it turned into flames in the air, burning the taotai into ashes. Moreover, the sunlight was like a tsunami, and it hit Li Moru directly. Poof! Accompanied by a muffled sound, Li Moru's body trembled. His body was surrounded by flames, and there was a burning smell. His chest was pierced, and his heart was crushed. Moreover, there was a terrifying spiritual power that destroyed his soul. Chapter 128. Swoosh! Suddenly, a cold light shot out from Jiang Qin's left. It was so fast that even Jiang Qin could not react in time. After all, in Jiang Qin's eyes, he had already killed Li Moru and Yi Shuixiao. There were no more enemies here. Caught off guard, Jiang Qin could only move sideways slightly, trying to dodge the attack. However, Bai Fengyu was standing behind him. If he dodged it, the cold light would definitely pierce Bai Fengyu. In Bai Fengyu's current state, once she was pierced by the cold light, she would definitely die. "You're really courting death." Following Jiang Qin's angry roar, the cold light pierced between Jiang Qin's eyebrows. He did not dodge and used his vital point to block it for Bai Fengyu. Fortunately, Jiang Qin's physical body was strong enough. His frontal bone was indestructible like a boulder and blocked the cold light. However, the impact still made Jiang Qin dizzy. Moreover, there was a terrifying mental strength that crushed his soul like a meat grinder. At this moment, the disciple from Chang'e's sect walked out from the corner with a disdainful expression. He sneered and said, "You didn't expect this, right?" "Yes, I didn't expect this." Jiang Qin's body was trembling. After being ambushed, he was extremely weak. As for Jiang Qin, he did not expect that the Chang'e sect disciples' retreat was actually an act. Moreover, the other party was from the darkness sect. No! Jiang Qin stared at the other party with a trace of surprise in his eyes. That cold light was mixed with terrifying mental strength. Not only did it have the means of the darkness sect, but it also had the means of the art grandmaster. Double cultivation of the dark arts? Jiang Qin said in a low voice. Yes. The Chang'e sect disciple nodded and said, "I know you're very strong." I'm afraid I'm not your match if I were to fight you head-on. Moreover, I'm originally from the Darkness sect. I'm an assassin. Hiding in the dark and launching sneak attacks is my forte. When Jiang Chen heard this, he nodded his head. The Darkness sect's methods could not be used openly. It was normal for them to launch a sneak attack. However, Jiang Chen's expression was slightly strange. He looked at the disciple of the Longsong sect and asked, "You've been talking to me for so long. Do you think I've lost my fighting strength? What else can I do?" This person said disdainfully, "You're lucky that the needle of annihilation didn't pierce through your head. Your soul must be trembling right now. Do you still have the strength to fight?" "Not before," Jiang Chun said truthfully. "It's just that after talking to me for so long." As he spoke, the sun and moon appeared in Jiang Chen's eyes. A beam of moonlight fell from the sky and shone on the Longsong sect disciple. Then, a beam of sunlight shot out from Jiang Chen's right eye. It was like a golden dragon. In the blink of an eye, it pierced through the Longsong sect disciple's forehead. It gave me a chance to catch my breath. Otherwise, I would have died. Jiang Chun said softly. His voice was weak. After all, the trembling of his soul was too much damage. However, in the next second, a beam of cold light appeared silently behind Jiang Chun. This time, Jiang Chun did not react in time. The back of his head was hit and blood spurted out. Luckily, Jiang Chen's body was strong and the cold light was broken. Upon closer inspection, it was a black needle. Why is there someone else? Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. He thought that after killing the Longsong sect disciple, he would be invincible. Therefore, he was careless. He did not expect to be sneak attacked again. "You think I'm dead?" At this moment, the voice of the Longsong sect disciple came from not far away. Then, with a sarcastic look on his face, he walked steadily towards Jiang Chun, one step at a time. "This time, I won't talk nonsense with you." The Longsong sect disciple sneered. "You were hit by my annihilation needle again, right? Although you are not dead now, I won't give you a chance to catch your breath." Jiang Chen frowned. "Does this guy have 2 lives? Don't think about it. I only have 1 life. The one you killed before was just my shadow." The Longsong sect disciple said softly. Upon closer inspection, there were 6 shadows behind him. "Shadow Dao spirit?" Jiang Chen was shocked. A trace of vigilance flashed in his eyes. The Shadow Dao spirit was known as the most powerful Dao spirit of the dark profession. Those who had the Shadow Dao spirit would definitely become the king of the dark in the future as long as they grew up. Jiang Chun had met one before. At that time, Jiang Chun was repeatedly attacked and assassinated. If he was not lucky, he would have died. How could he become a god? Unexpectedly, after his rebirth, Jiang Chen met another person with the Shadow Dao spirit. "I must kill him." Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed, but his soul was throbbing. The spiritual power in his body was collapsing. Even his mental power was distorted. Although this injury was not fatal to Jiang Chen, but the key was that he could not move at this moment. "Do I have to use the forbidden technique?" Jiang Chen thought, but he was not willing to do so. The forbidden technique was against the heavens. If it was used too much, it would be punished by the heavens. Moreover, Jiang Chun had Jiang Lubai, Feng Yu, and the others beside him. If they could block for Jiang Chen for a while and give him a chance to catch his breath, he would be able to get through today safely. However, Jiang Chen looked back and found that Jiang Lubai and the others were very weak. The spiritual power in their bodies had collapsed. Their condition was worse than his. "Your life will come to an end." At this moment, the Longsong sect disciple said softly. A cold light condensed at his fingertip. It was as black as ink and shot straight at Jiang Chun. At this moment, Jiang Chun saw that the Longsong sect disciple was so confident. He could not help but smile. "You underestimate me," Jiang Chun said softly. "You are too confident." Poof! As soon as he said that, a muffled sound was heard. Then, Mo Xingtian appeared behind the Longsong sect disciple. The dagger in his hand pierced into the back of the disciple's head. As for Jiang Chun, he managed to block his opponent's attack with his body alone. As such, Jiang Chun was still alive. The Longsong sect disciple was dead. I have so many servants. Do you really think I don't have any protection? Jiang Chun smiled. When Bai Fengyu and Jiang Lubai arrived at solitary North City, Mo Xingtian had already arrived. He had been hiding and guarding by Jiang Chen's side. Moreover, ever since Mo Xingtian cultivated the Sunset Demon God's legacy, his concealment skills had become more profound. Sometimes, even Jiang Chun could not detect him. Master, are you okay? Mo Xingtian walked over and asked worriedly. I'm fine. Jiang Chun shook his head. I'll be fine after a while. While speaking, Jiang Chun suddenly squinted his eyes. He saw a black figure flash by in the distance and leave quickly. He's not dead, Jiang Chun said coldly. This guy is too vigilant. The one you killed previously was still his shadow. I'll chase after him, Mo Xingtian said, but was stopped by Jiang Chun. There's no need to chase. He knows that he has no chance to kill me. He must have left the tomb. Jiang Chun shook his head. When he goes out later, I'm afraid he'll feel terrible. Chapter 129. It wasn't a good thing for Jiang Chun that the disciples of Chang'e's sect had escaped. After all, they wouldn't let Jiang Chun have an easy time if they couldn't get the treasures of the Nine Palace tomb. By then, that guy was probably outside. Jiang Chun had told him everything that had happened here. When Jiang Chun went out, everyone would be jealous of the treasures of the Nine Palace Temple and would definitely attack him. At that time, even with Uncle Chin's support, it would be hard to stop them. After all, the six sects, the Monster Hunter Union, the Martial Pavilion, and the City Lord's Mansion weren't child's play. Maybe there were King Realm experts in these forces, but they didn't make a move on normal days. Rest up. There will be a fierce battle when we go out. Jiang Chun said in a low voice and sat down cross-legged to rest. The others also sat down cross-legged to recuperate from their injuries. At the same time, outside the Nine Palace tomb, in a valley. What did you say? That kid killed Ishui Shao? He killed Limora? He got all the treasures of the Nine Palace tomb? At this moment, there was an uproar. Not to mention who got the treasures of the Nine Palace tomb. Just the lives of Ishui Shao and Limora were enough to make Qingjian's sect and Black Mountain sect angry. Of course, Qingjian's sect master was dead, so it seemed like their strength was greatly reduced. However, who knew if there were any other powerful cultivators in the Green Sword sect? As for Black Mountain sect, there was no need to talk about their strength. They were second only to Chang'e's sect in the six sects. The death of the strongest disciples of the two sects destroyed the future of the two sections. It was too difficult to nurture another young expert. It would take a lot of effort and money. Senior, I'm afraid we can't let this go. Marquis Bega looked at Uncle Chun and said, I think the Bank of the World wants the treasures of the Nine Palace tomb, right? Of course. Uncle Chun nodded and said, I understand what you mean. I will let the young master back out of this conflict, but the Bank of the World wants a share of the treasures of the Nine Palace tomb. That's good. Thank you, Senior. Everyone thanked him. They didn't want to get into a conflict with the Bank of the World. Of course, this place was far from the Bank of the World's headquarters. If they really fought, these sects had nothing to fear. In any case, as long as he obtained the treasures in the Nine Palaces tomb, he could leave. At that time, he could find a place to hide and make a comeback. As for Uncle Chun, he had his reasons for agreeing to the request. The reason being that he had sensed a few auras hiding near the canyon, whose strength was on par with his. It was obvious that those hidden King Realm experts were from these sects and forces. He was alone, he couldn't fight two fists. Even if he didn't think for himself, he had to think for young Master Chen. He couldn't let his young master fall into a dangerous situation. I, Luo Tianchong, want a share of the treasures in the Nine Palaces tomb. At this moment, he teased the sect's master teat sect, sex high sex. TTSTTTTTTTTTs. Everyone bowed. They were afraid of the Martial Pavilion's sixth young master. I'm just here to watch the show. You can do whatever you want. At this moment, outside the canyon, Nayland May swayed her slender waist as she strode in gracefully. As soon as she appeared, She immediately attracted everyone's attention. Some people's eyes were filled with greed, while others were filled with fear. There were even some who were confused. Lady Boss Naylin, what are you doing here? Why aren't you managing your hotel properly? What are you doing here? Black Mountain sect master frowned. He stared at Naylin Mayer's hot body. He didn't hide the greed in his eyes. I was bored staying in the hotel all day, so I came out for a walk. Naylin Mayer smiled coquettishly and blinked her eyes. She said weakly, "You guys can't bully your humble servant." "Of course not." Marshall Pavilion Master smiled. "Lady Boss Naylin likes to joke. No one dares to bully you here." "That's right. Who dares to bully you? That's courting death." They only knew that Naylin Mayer had the support of the King of Darkness, but they didn't know that Naylin Mayer's identity was enough to crush them. However, they all knew that Naylin Mayer didn't like to talk about her identity. Therefore, she didn't say it. No one would say it. They didn't want to get into trouble. "Lady Naylin, I don't think you need to open that lousy hotel. Why don't you come back to the Marshall Pavilion headquarters with me and enjoy the glory and wealth?" Luo Tiancheng's eyes were glowing. He was spoiled by Lin Lang Wentian, so he was arrogant. "Sixth young master, she is—" The Marshall Pavilion Master of Bega City whispered in Luo Tiancheng's ear. He had a strange expression. When Luo Tiancheng heard this, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. When he looked at Naylin Mayer, his gaze was no longer as unbridled. This place is truly bustling with noise and excitement. At this moment, a man descended from the sky and landed nearby. He was wearing a white robe with a black river embroidered on it. Someone from the 800 Miles Black River. The 800 Miles Black River is so far away from here. What is he doing here? Everyone was puzzled and thought that it would be lively today. So many people from various sects and forces had arrived. It seemed that the news of the Nine Palace tomb had spread. "Where's my young master?" The man frowned and looked around. He didn't see young Master Luo. Inside, Bega Ho said, "He should be out soon." It's good that he's out." The man nodded and said, "I'm just here to take a look." The 800 Miles Black River doesn't want the treasures in the Nine Palace tomb. As soon as he said that, everyone understood. Although young Master Luo was expelled from the 800 Miles Black River, he was still the young master of the 800 Miles Black River. Now it seemed that this man was here for young Master Luo. After all, the matter here was getting out of hand. If no one came to support young Master Luo, there would be an accident. "He's out. He's here." Suddenly, someone exclaimed a few times. Then everyone fixed their eyes on the crack in the canyon. When they looked over, they saw a group of people led by Jiang Chun slowly walking out of the crack. "Oh, it's so lively." Jiang Chun chuckled, but he was a little nervous. After all, his cultivation was not high. He had just reached the intermediate zone realm. Although he was an all-rounder, it was difficult for him to fight against so many people. Moreover, Jiang Chun had already seen a few King Realm experts and sensed that there were a few more King Realm cultivators around him. "Leave if you can later. Don't worry about me," Jiang Chun said with a serious expression. Chapter 130. When Jiang Chun and his companions walked out of the crack in the mountain wall, they were immediately surrounded by people. They didn't say anything, but their intentions were obvious. Jiang Chun frowned and looked at the surrounding people. He said coldly, "The thing is in my hands. Let them go, and I will stay." The moment he said that, Uncle Chin immediately said, "Naturally, no one will touch my young master." As he said that, he waved at young Master Chun and said, "Young master, come to my side." Young Master Chun hesitated. After all, his life was still in Jiang Chen's hands. If he did, Jiang Chen could kill him right away if he wasn't happy about it. "Go over. I will deal with today's matter alone," Jiang Chun said softly. "If I am still alive, you can still be saved." The moment he said that, young Master Chen's face collapsed. Jiang Chen's meaning was obvious. If he died, the seal in young Master Chen's body wouldn't be undone. At that time, young Master Chen could only wait for death. "Uncle Chun, don't interfere in today's matter. We don't want the treasures in the Nine Palace tomb." Young Master Chen walked in front of Uncle Chen and said solemnly, "I am ordering you as the young master of the Bank of the World." This? Yes. Uncle Chen hesitated. Although he was unwilling, he was a servant of the Bank of the World, and his job was to protect young Master Chen. Young Master Chen's words were an imperial edict to him. "Young Master, come over too." The man from 800 Miles Black River said, 800 Miles Black River, don't need the treasures in the Nine Palace tomb." Young Master Luo heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that. He glanced at Jiang Chun. After getting his permission, he walked over to him. Then, young Master Chun and Uncle Chun retreated to the side. Young Master Luo and the man also retreated. At this moment, Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. He looked at everyone and said, "Let them go. What kind of joke is this? Let them go. What right do you have to talk terms with us? If we kill you, the thing will be ours. Today, you will all die. With your strength, you shouldn't have come here." The people from the 6 great sects were filled with disdain. Several sect leaders and elders had already walked towards Jiang Chun. They were very calm. After all, their cultivation levels were much higher than Jiang Chen's, and they believed that they could easily suppress Jiang Chen. Meanwhile, Yi Minji of the Guild of Beast Hunters, Marquis Begu of the City Lord Mansion, and a few Emperor Realm cultivators who were hiding nearby showed up and approached Jiang Chun. "Very good," Jiang Chun said softly, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "Today, let's fight to the death. Wong." As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Chun formed a series of seals with both hands, and an array formation formed beneath their feet. Forbidden technique, spatial shift. Along with a soft shout, a bright light burst out from the array formation, causing space to distort. Then, by Feng Yu, Jiang Lu, and Mo Xingtian's figures disappeared. They had been teleported out by the forbidden technique. Unfortunately, the forbidden technique was only capable of teleporting others away. The person who used the forbidden technique was unable to teleport away. "Heh, our target is you. Hand it over." At this moment, Jiang Chun was surrounded by people. Among these people, the lowest cultivation level was at the upper zone realm, and the highest was at the middle emperor realm. "Are you qualified?" Jiang Chun said coldly. The stars in his body went berserk, and as his spirit energy surged, the power of heaven and earth surged as well. His entire body shone with a reddish-gold radiance like a divine light. Every inch of his skin was vibrating, and his body seemed to be made of gold. His hair danced in the wind like 3,000 golden catkins fluttering in the wind. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Kill. At this moment, several people shouted angrily, and then terrifying spirit energy burst out. There were even people from the Darkness sect who attacked. A cold light silently pierced towards Jiang Chen's glabella. "How dare you?" Jiang Chen roared. As he raised his hand, the power of heaven and earth burst forth, shattering the cold light in front of him. Then wind gathered under his feet, and he rushed out. His left hand formed a fist seal, and his right hand formed a palm seal. When the fist and palm collided, the illusory figures of a dragon and a phoenix appeared. The mighty aura seemed to devour the mountains and rivers, and the dragon and phoenix roared, sending an upper zone realm cultivator flying. He died instantly. However, at the same time, 3 palm seals struck Jiang Chen's body like spiraling winds. His body trembled, and the power of heaven and earth burst forth, forming a battle armor that blocked the attacks. "I am the king. All of you are my subjects. Today, all of you must submit." Jiang Chen's hair danced wildly as he punched out with his left hand. The fist beam seemed to be able to split mountains, and the ground cracked. One after another, earth spikes shot out like rain and pierced through the 3 upper-level zone realm cultivators. At the same time, Jiang Chen formed hand seals with his right hand and released the forbidden skill, Might of the Galaxy. Accompanied by a dragon's roar, Jiang Chen's eyes shone with a silver light, and a silver dragon roared out. Silver light shone everywhere it passed, and the dragon's might was even more mighty. The dragon claw struck out and knocked the pavilion master of the martial pavilion away. The dragon's might swept across and sent Marquis Begu flying. Everyone was shocked when they saw that. They could not believe that a mid-level zone realm cultivator could be so powerful. All of you, back off. This person is extraordinary. Let us deal with him. At this moment, the Emperor realm cultivators could not stand it anymore. These people's cultivation levels were all higher than Jiang Chen's, but they still couldn't suppress him. As soon as he finished speaking, a sword king, a dark king, and a technique king attacked. The sky was filled with raging flames. They turned into a giant flaming elephant. It flew down from the air with its 4 limbs. It looked like 4 pillars of fire. It was pressing down on Jiang Chun. The sword in the Sword King's hand hummed, and sword chi surged out like a river. The Dark King disappeared and hid behind Jiang Chun. A pitch-black dagger was silently stabbing toward the back of Jiang Chen's head. Forbidden technique. True 1,000 floating doors. Jiang Chun did not dare to hesitate. Even though he knew that using the forbidden technique would cause him great harm, he did not care anymore. Following a furious roar, something seemed to break in the sky. Then, huge doors appeared one after another. They were painted in gold and red and fell toward the valley with great momentum. How many forbidden techniques has he mastered? This kid, these forbidden techniques, could it be? At this moment, some people exclaimed and some were confused. For example, Yi Minji and Marquis Begu. When these 2 people saw these forbidden techniques, their expressions could not help becoming strange. Then, without saying anything, they retreated and stopped attacking. Even the 2 Emperor Realm cultivators from the Monster Hunters Union and the city governor's mansion retreated. Booming sounds kept coming. Jiang Chun pushed his palm forward to block the sword energy that was as big as a river. He swept his hand behind him like a dragon, swinging its tail, and shattered the Dark King's dagger. However, the flaming elephant in the sky had already landed on Jiang Chen's body like pillars of fire. Chapter 131. Poof! At that moment, Jiang Chen was injured. His face was pale, and blood was spurting out of his mouth. His entire body was burning with raging flames, and there was even a burnt smell coming from him. Brat, hand it over. You have to hand it over. The art monarch focused on mental power and manipulated the elements of the 5 elements. Their mastery of the art of manifestation allowed them to execute powerful martial skills. Even though Jiang Chun had a strong body, he was still charred on the outside and tender on the inside. He was lucky that he was still alive. At that moment, everyone was shouting angrily. At the same time, they had to block the huge doors falling from the sky. They were under great pressure. The crowd was shocked. They hadn't expected Jiang Chun to be defeated by several strong men in the King realm. However, judging from the situation, it was only a matter of time before they defeated Jiang Chun. It's over. Jiang Chun stood where he was. His eyes were cold, but he was helpless and unwilling to give up. His cultivation was too low, and he had used forbidden skills. In addition, he was injured. He could not continue to fight. There was only one outcome if he lost his combat power. Death. Should we attack? After all, he has a special relationship with Kuang Rinshao. Marquis Bega looked at Yi Minji. How can the 2 of us attack in this situation? Yi Minji smiled bitterly and said, although you have martial kings in the city governor's mansion, and the Monster Hunters Union have martial kings, if we attack, we will become enemies with the 6 major sects and the martial pavilion. Marquis Begu could only smile bitterly. However, at that moment a gentle voice was heard. Didn't you want to take me as your disciple? What should we do if he dies? When the crowd heard the voice, they looked over and saw Nailin Mei wearing a charming smile. She was blinking her pretty eyes and twisting her waist, waving at Jiang Chun. Lady boss, what do you mean by this? What does he have to do with you? I advise you not to interfere in today's matter. The people from the 6 major sects looked gloomy. Among the people present, they were most afraid of Nailin Mayer. I just want to ask, if he's dead, where should I go to find this master of mine? Nailin May bit her finger as she put on a delicate and charming look. Her seductive eyes were like peach blossoms, moving one's soul. When Jiang Chun heard this, his eyes lit up as if he had seen hope. "Help me. I'll support you." Jiang Chun straightened his face and waved his hand. "The treasures of the 9 halls are all in my hands, enough to feed you." "Oh, then of course you can." Nayland May smiled. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone saw her leap into the air like a celestial being. Colorful clouds appeared around her. Streaks of light rippled around her body, and there was even a melody that sounded out of nowhere. She had a graceful figure and a charming face. Her hands were gently raised, and her snake-like waist was gently twisting. "She's dancing? What are you doing?" Everyone was stunned, looking at Nayland Mayer, who suddenly started dancing. They were completely clueless about what was going on. Only Jiang Chun laughed at this moment. A war dancer used dance as a battle, and used dance to assist in battle. One dance was a battlefield. One dance was a world. At this moment, Jiang Chun could feel a wonderful power coming from Nayland Mayer. It was like the purest energy in the world. After rushing into his body, his injuries were healed in an instant. Moreover, there was a divine light, as brilliant as the sunset, that enveloped Jiang Chun, causing his aura to soar by a large margin. "Today, I'll dance for you. In the future, you'll keep watch for me. How's that?" Nayland Mayer, who was dancing, was not only charming, but also had a trace of ethereal feeling. She was like a celestial being who had fallen into the mortal world, tainted with the aura of the mortal world, but also seemed so ethereal. "Good. Dance for me, and I'll keep watch for you." Jiang Chun nodded, and his aura soared again. With a punch, the power of heaven and earth shot out like a golden dragon and bombarded the Art King's body. Bang! Following the explosion, the Art King's expression changed drastically. The protective spiritual energy on his body dissipated, and his chest was penetrated. If he hadn't used a spell to protect his vitals at the last moment, this attack would have taken his life. How did this kid suddenly become so strong? "Nayland Mayer, what are you doing? Are you going to make an enemy of us?" Some were shocked, while others were furious. The Sword King raised his sword and slashed at Nayland Mayer. Poof! However, as soon as he made his move, a wisp of black light exploded beside him before he could even slash out a single sword chi. Then, a pitch-black dagger pierced through the Sword King's forehead. Killed in one blow. It's the Dark King by Nayland Mayer's side. The Sword King dares to attack Nayland Mayer. Everyone was dumbfounded. Everyone present was very clear that no matter what Nayland Mayer did today, no one was allowed to lay a hand on her. She was not an ordinary person. Moreover, even if they wanted to attack Nayland Mayer, they had to be wary of the Dark King by her side. Just like the Sword King, who was caught off guard and directly attacked Nayland Mayer, he was simply courting death. "The rest of you, submit or die." At this moment, Jiang Chun's body shone with golden light, and the power of heaven and earth shot out like a cloud. He rose into the air like a god of the 9 heavens, looking down on everyone. Behind him, a bright moon rose, and above his head, a brilliant sun hung high in the sky. As he spoke, his left eye turned into a bright moon, and his right eye turned into a bright sun. "You're just an ant. Today, you'll die without a doubt." The remaining people roared and were about to attack when they saw the light of the bright moon and the bright sun explode from Jiang Chun's eyes. Like two pillars of light, one landed on the Skill King, and the other landed on the Dark King. Bang! Bang! Following two muffled sounds, the Skill King's face turned pale, and blood spurted out of his mouth. His abdomen, chest, and left shoulder all shattered under the moonlight. Moreover, in just 3 breaths of time, the Art Emperor exploded into a bloody mist that filled the sky. At the same time, the Dark King was enveloped by the light of the bright sun, and golden flames burned on his body. He screamed and used all the spiritual energy in his body, but he couldn't extinguish the fire on his body. In the end, the Dark King collapsed and was burned to ashes. At this moment, The entire place was silent. Only Nayland Mayer was still dancing in the air, and the rhythm around her was ethereal. Jiang Chen was still standing in the air, and his gaze swept across everyone. He said coldly, "Submit or die." The expressions of the people from the 6 major sects changed drastically. Their faces were extremely ugly. Submit to him? Submit to a mid-level Grandmaster brat? If they really submitted, how could the 6 major sects show their faces? However, their strongest king realm cultivator had been killed by Jiang Chen. If they didn't submit now, they would probably be killed by Jiang Chen. Chapter 132. You're courting death. Suddenly, Luo Tianchong roared angrily. The giant golden tiger appeared behind him, and a domineering aura filled the air. He had the cultivation of the king realm and had not made a move before. He had been watching from the sidelines. Now, he was furious. However, as soon as his Dao soul appeared, everyone saw a huge purplish gold vine appear behind Jiang Chen. An emperor's aura erupted. "It's just a giant golden tiger," Jiang Chen said contemptuously. He slapped the air, and the Dao soul behind him shone brightly. The purplish gold vines swooped down like dragons. The sound of air being torn apart was heard, and the air was distorted. Everyone saw the purplish gold light falling from the sky and heard Luo Tianchong scream. When everything disappeared and the purplish gold light dissipated, Luo Tianchong was lying on the ground, covered in blood. There was no spiritual energy fluctuation on his body, and he was on the verge of death. He's crippled? What? How is that possible? Luo Tianchong has the giant golden tiger Dao soul, and it's extremely powerful. Everyone was shocked and could not believe what they saw. He's the Emperor's Vine? It's the same as the records. It's indomitable, purplish gold, and has the Emperor's aura. It's the Emperor's Vine Dao soul. At that moment, some people realized what was going on and exclaimed. There were even people from 2 sects who knelt down and chose to submit. After all, other than the 2 king realm cultivators from the Monster Hunters Union and the city governor's mansion, the other king realm cultivators from the other sects were all dead. Even Luo Tianchong, a king realm cultivator with a Dao soul, was crippled. How could they fight against Jiang Chen? However, before everyone could submit, Nayland Mayer stopped. There was sweat on her forehead and her face was slightly pale. "I'm tired," Nayland Mayer said softly. Jiang Chen had a bad feeling when he heard that. Sure enough, the moment Nayland Mayer stopped dancing, the divine light that enveloped him disappeared. In an instant, the injuries that Jiang Chen had suffered before completely erupted. His body swayed, and the power of heaven and earth in his body dissipated. Even his mental strength became extremely weak. He fell from the sky like a living corpse, lying on the ground with his face facing the sky. He lost his combat ability. Good chance. Kill. At this moment, everyone was overjoyed. They didn't expect that the previously invincible Jiang Chen would suddenly lose the ability to fight. Immediately, a few Zone Realm cultivators walked over with spirit energy, surging in an attempt to kill Jiang Chen. Let's see who dares. However, right at this moment, an extremely overbearing and arrogant voice resounded from afar. Looking in the direction of the voice, they saw a dense blood aura coming from outside the canyon. It was as if a blood dragon was charging toward them. Taking a closer look, Kwang Rinxiao's eyes were red, and his face was savage and even a little ferocious. Madman's laughter. Chaotic madman, a laugh of insolence, a laugh of a madman. In an instant, the people who were about to make a move stopped. When they looked at the madman, a hint of fear flashed in their eyes. Who are you to bully a disciple of the North Ming Hall? Within 3 breaths' time, Kwang Rinxiao landed beside Jiang Chen. He seemed to have 9 orifices on his body and was about to break through the shackles of heaven. His hair fluttered in the wind, and his face was wild and unruly. His blood-red eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Dean, how powerful are you?" Jiang Chen was lying on the ground. He was severely injured and couldn't move. However, He knew that since Kwang Runxiao was here today, he would be fine. How powerful? You'll have to ask them. Kwang Runxiao looked at Jiang Chun. His face suddenly became kind, and the ferocious look was completely hidden. I knew it. Kwang Runxiao and Jiang Chun have a special relationship. What's going on? What's the relationship between Kwang Runxiao and Jiang Chun? Marquis Begu and Yiming Yi were confused. They didn't know why Kwang Runxiao was so nice to Jiang Chun. However, they were also worried, since Kwang Runxiao was here to protect Jiang Chun. Then, Jiang Chun's identity would be exposed. Although Jiang Chun was in disguise, the people present weren't fools. They could easily figure out Jiang Chun's identity if they did some simple investigation. And Jiang Chun had crippled Luo Tianchong. If this matter was spread out, the Martial Pavilion would be furious. Kwang Runxiao, you said he's a disciple of the North Ming Hall? An elder of the Azure Sword sect asked. Then, who is he? There's such a powerful disciple in the North Ming Hall? The people of the Black Mountain sect asked. Kwang Runxiao didn't answer these questions. Instead, he looked at Jiang Chun. Huh. Jiang Chun chuckled. After lying on the ground for a while, he struggled to stand up. He looked serious. After removing his disguise, he said, the sect leader of the Chuanzuan sect, Jiang Chun. The moment these words came out, everyone couldn't help but be stunned and even more surprised. No one had expected such a young man to be the sect leader of the Chuanzuan sect. No one had expected such a young genius to be born in the declining Chuanzuan sect. From now on, there's no place for you on the godless continent. You shouldn't have crippled Luo Tianchong. Soon, someone spoke with a cold smile on his face. Jiang Chun didn't need these people to tell him how grave the consequences of crippling Luo Tianchong would be. At this moment, Jiang Chun was in a dilemma. Since his identity had been exposed, then he could leave, but what about the Chuanzuan sect? If the Martial Pavilion was furious, they could send an expert over, and the Chuanzuan sect wouldn't be able to stop them. You said you would take care of me? Suddenly, Nayland Mayer spoke softly. She blinked her beautiful eyes and said pitifully, I've already danced for you. You can't deny it. Jiang Chun felt a headache coming on. Can't you be more normal at a time like this? I'll take care of you, but you have to be my disciple. Jiang Chun smiled bitterly. However, I'm afraid the days ahead won't be easy. Just take care of me. Nayland Mayer smiled. A cold light flashed in her eyes. She was serious for once. She glanced at the people around her and said, Master's business is my business. When she said that, everyone was moved. Even the people from the Martial Pavilion felt a headache coming on. They knew Nayland Mayer's identity. If she wanted to protect Jiang Chun and the Chuanzuan sect, the Martial Pavilion headquarters wouldn't be able to do anything. All right, Master, let's go. Nayland Mayer became charming again. She swayed her slender waist and walked to Jiang Chun's side. She then grabbed Jiang Chun's hand and walked out of the canyon. Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. He couldn't help but ask, That's it? What else could it be? Nayland Mayer blinked her beautiful eyes and said, He's very powerful. Chapter 133. Jiang Chun left. Nayland Mayer held his hand and left under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Even Jiang Chun did not believe that he could leave so easily. After all, there were people from the 6 major sects and the Martial Pavilion in the canyon. If they wanted to make things difficult for Jiang Chun, even with the protection of the crazy person's laughter, it would not be easy for them to leave. Moreover, according to Nayland Mayer's words, as long as she was there, the Martial Pavilion would not dare to touch the Chuanzuan sect. Was this true? Not long after, Nayland Mayer brought Jiang Chun back to a shabby restaurant in solitary North City. Then, he entered her boudoir. Jiang Chun was very calm. He sat down calmly and asked with a smile, What's your background? I'm just a little girl who runs a restaurant. Nayland Mayer blinked and said shyly, A man and a woman alone in a room. You see? Fine. Jiang Chun immediately stood up and said, You will be my second disciple from now on. Don't disturb me if you have nothing to do. Nayland Mayer pouted and said, You are my master. Shouldn't you teach me something? Also, You said that you would take care of me. With that, Nayland Mayer stretched out her slender hand and waved it in front of Jiang Chun. She smiled and said, Master, where's my gift? What about this month's living expenses? Jiang Chun was stunned for a moment. He stared at Nayland Mayer with a strange expression and wondered if he had accepted a disciple or an ancestor. However, Jiang Chun had obtained the treasures of the Nine Palace Temple and was now very rich. Naturally, Nayland Mayer's living expenses would not be a problem. Jiang Chun immediately took out a large pile of top-grade spirit stones and said, Are these enough? More or less? Nayland Mayer nodded. The pile of spirit stones in front of her was at least 50 million. However, her next words almost made Jiang Chun faint. She put the spirit stones away and muttered, It should last for about 2 or 3 days. You spent 50 million top-grade spirit stones in 2 or 3 days. What did you use? Jiang Chen's face darkened. He suddenly felt that he was not rich. With Nayland Mayer's way of spending money, no matter how rich he was, he wouldn't be able to stop her. You know about war dancers, so you definitely know that war dancers cultivate not by absorbing heaven, earth, yuan, qi, but by absorbing the powers in spirit stones, Nayland Mayer said. I want spirit stones, so of course it's for cultivation. Nayland Mayer rolled her eyes and curled her lips. Idiot! Jiang Chun was dumbfounded, and his heart was in a mess. He suddenly felt that there was something wrong with this disciple. All right, the Martial Pavilion won't find trouble with me, right? Jiang Chun asked. After crippling Luo Tianchong, if the Martial Pavilion found trouble with him, with Jiang Chen's current strength, he really couldn't stop them. With me around, the Martial Pavilion won't find trouble with the Chuanzuan sect. After all, it won't involve family. Nayland Mayer said with a smile, But as for you, I can't control you. Jiang Chun breathed a sigh of relief. It didn't matter if the Martial Pavilion found trouble with him. Now that he was outside and alone, he could come and go as he pleased. If he could fight, he would fight. If he couldn't, he would run. As long as they didn't find trouble with the Chuanzuan sect, everything was fine. Subsequently, Jiang Chun notified Jiang Lu and the others through the contract. Half a day later, Jiang Lu and the others hurried over and met up with Jiang Chun in a shabby restaurant. When they saw that Jiang Chun was fine, Jiang Lu and the others couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Bai Fingyu's eyes were slightly red as she stared at Jiang Chun with hidden bitterness. Not only was she worried about Jiang Chen's safety, but she was also worried about her position in Jiang Chen's heart. It was all because she had seen Nayland Mayer. Fengyu, she will be your junior sister from now on. You have to take care of her. Jiang Chen introduced. Master Shi. Bai Fingyu's face was gloomy as she looked at Nayland Mayer's charming appearance and the 2 peaks in front of her chest. All right, Bai Fengyu suddenly felt very unconfident. She couldn't help but straighten her chest. In the end, after comparing again, Bai Fengyu thought in her heart, If my chest is not flat, how can I bring peace to the world? Master, what do we do next? Mo Xingtian's face was gloomy as he said, The 6 major sects and the Martial Pavilion have dealt with you. This matter can't be left unsettled. Of course not. Jiang Chen nodded. However, Jiang Chen also had concerns in his heart. Previously, in the area of Qingyun town, he had destroyed 3 major sects one after another, which had already violated the rules set by the Martial Pavilion. Now, if he wanted to take revenge, how many of the 6 major sects would be left in the end? By then, there would definitely be a few that would be destroyed. If he destroyed the sects one after another, the Martial Pavilion would definitely be alarmed. By then, the Martial Pavilion headquarters would send people down. How could Jiang Chen contend with them? However, after thinking carefully, Jiang Chun had no more concerns. Anyway, since he had destroyed Luo Tianchong, the Martial Pavilion headquarters would come looking for him sooner or later. Since that was the case, what was there to be afraid of? Go all out. Do it. However, before that, Jiang Chen still had one more thing to do. All of you wait here for now. I have something to do, Jiang Chen said and turned to leave. Half an hour later, in the backyard of the Monster Hunters Union, Jiang Chun found Yi Minji and asked directly, This time, did Marquis Begu arrange it alone, or did you have a part in it too? Yi Minji already knew that Jiang Chen would come and even guessed that Jiang Chen would ask this question. He smiled and said, "Both Marquis Begu and I have a part in this matter. However, our original intention was to kill the people of the 6 major sects and the Martial Pavilion. We didn't know that you would come too." Reason, Jiang Chen said softly. The Monster Hunters Union and Marquis Begu would not attack the Martial Pavilion and the 6 major sects for no reason. Of course, the Monster Hunters Union and the Martial Pavilion were sworn enemies. If the two sides fought, even if the sky and the earth were turned upside down, Jiang Chen would not be surprised. However, a mere governor of Bega City had the guts to attack the Martial Pavilion? Moreover, what did this have to do with the 6 major sects? Ever since the Chuanzuan sect fell behind, the godless continent has been controlled by the Martial Pavilion. Although the Martial Pavilion has set all kinds of rules and order, and the world appears to be peaceful, in reality, the things that the Martial Pavilion has done behind the scenes have caused a lot of anger, Yi Minji explained. Then, Yi Minji explained in detail. Jiang Chen listened quietly to the side. After half a day, Jiang Chen finally understood. The Monster Hunters Union planned to overthrow the Martial Pavilion and return freedom to the world. All the sects, clans, and inheritances in the world are bound by the rules and orders set by the Martial Pavilion. Yi Minji emphasized, all living things in the world should be free and not controlled by others. Back then, when the Chuanzuan sect was at its peak, although it dominated the godless continent, it did not interfere with the affairs of the major sections. That was the real world, Yi Minji said. Hearing this, Jiang Chen nodded and agreed with Yi Minji's words. Back then, when Jiang Chen established the Chuanzuan sect and dominated the godless continent, he did not interfere with the affairs of the major sections. This was because he understood how precious the word freedom was. Chapter 134. The Martial Pavilion ruled the godless continent. They seem to have set many rules to maintain the peace and order of the godless continent. However, in reality, what the Martial Pavilion did behind the scenes was outrageous. It was the complete opposite of the rules they set. However, the Martial Pavilion was too powerful now. Many sects, forces, and families could only endure. Few dared to stand up against them. However, the demonic sect had stood up before. Mo Yuan went to the headquarters of the Martial Pavilion and started a war with Lin Lang Wentian. As for the result, Jiang Chen knew that Mo Yuan lost and swore a blood oath to never leave the demonic sect again. You should know the strength of the Monster Hunters Union. It can compete with the Martial Pavilion, Yi Minji said. However, it's still too difficult to defeat the Martial Pavilion. So, the Monster Hunters Union needs help? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows. However, he was confused. Who is Marquis Begu? They can't find ordinary people to deal with the Martial Pavilion, right? Although Marquis Begu was the city lord of Bega City, he was like an ant compared to the Martial Pavilion. There must be a reason why the Monster Hunters Union chose to cooperate with Marquis Begu. Marquis Begu is a descendant of the Bega family, Yi Minji explained. The Bega family once joined forces with the demonic sect to fight against the Martial Pavilion. However, after the demonic sect was defeated, the Bega family was destroyed by the Martial Pavilion. Only Marquis Begu escaped and is now hiding in Bega City. Hearing this, Jiang Chen shook his head. He still couldn't understand. The Bega family was destroyed. Only Marquis Begu was left. Was this useful? Marquis Begu is not as simple as he looks, Yi Minji said. You will understand in the future. Since you don't want to say more, I won't ask more, Jiang Chen said. He was more curious about Marquis Bega's identity. However, since Yi Minji didn't say anything, Jiang Chen wouldn't ask further. Then, Jiang Chen got up and left the Monster Hunters Union. As soon as he came out, he saw Kuang Ren standing at the door. He looked at Jiang Chen with a numb expression. He seemed to have waited for a long time. Dean, you were waiting for me? Jiang Chen blinked his eyes and said, Is something the matter? What do you think? Crazy person chuckled. When are you going to the 4 Cardinal Divine Palace? The higher-ups have already come to urge us. Oh, Jiang Chen said softly. I'll go right away. Once I'm done with the matters here, I'll head to the quadrangle divine courtyard. With that, Jiang Chen waved his hand and said, Goodbye. Madman laugh froze on the spot, looking at Jiang Chen's back as he left. He thought to himself, what is this guy up to again? However, Kuang Run Xiao did not care. No matter what kind of trouble Jiang Chen caused, as long as he was still in the solitary North City area, it was fine. After all, with Kuang Run Xiao's status and strength, he was more than capable of suppressing everything in the solitary North City. Nethery, how are you doing in Tianyuan Forest? After returning to the Broken Cup Inn, Jiang Chun found an empty room and asked through telepathy. After the 9 Nether Phoenix heard it, she immediately replied, I'm doing well. Other than the group of demonic beasts in Tianyuan Forest, the other demonic beasts are all under my feet. They are under my prestige. Then call your brothers and go to war with me. Jiang Chun said straightforwardly, it's time to take action. Oh, are we going to war? The 9 Nether Phoenix was excited. It was as if she was seeing the scene when Jiang Chun led the entire sect to war. At that time, how glorious and how hot-blooded it was. Battle cries shook the sky, and even the sky was dyed with blood. Now, Jiang Chun was reborn, and the 9 Nether Phoenix was born. It was as if everything was just yesterday. I'll wait for you at the Azure Sword sect, Jiang Chun said through telepathy. Then his figure flashed, and he left the inn. When he left the inn, it was already night. Tonight, there was no wind, no stars, and no moon. The ground was dyed with a layer of darkness. It was so dark that one couldn't even see their own fingers. In the darkness, Jiang Chun was like a ghost, flying in the direction of the Azure Sword sect. Behind him, there was a black shadow, following him closely. This person was Mo Xingtian. The two of them, one in front and one behind, did not say a word. However, in their hearts, they both knew that tonight would be a sleepless night. After the time it took for 3 incense sticks to burn, Jiang Chun and Mo Xingtian landed outside the mountain gate of the Azure Sword sect. The two of them hid their auras and stood on top of a tree, quietly waiting for something. After a long time, Mo Xingtian suddenly opened his mouth and asked, Are we done killing? Just destroy them. Why do we have to kill them? Jiang Chun said with a smile. As long as the higher-ups of the Azure Sword sect are alive, the rest will be spared. Okay. Mo Xingtian nodded. Boom! Boom! When dawn was about to arrive, a series of explosions suddenly came from the distant horizon. At the same time, there was a huge black shadow flying in the sky. Upon closer inspection, a large group of demonic beasts was running towards them from afar. In the sky, the demonic beasts flapped their wings and roared like thunder. Little Yu is here, Jiang Chen said softly. Then he waved his hand and said, Fight? Boom! As soon as he said that, a ray of sunlight shot out from Jiang Chen's eyes. It was as if a huge sun had risen into the sky, illuminating the silent and cold night. What's going on? Are those demonic beasts? Beast-tide? At this moment, the Azure Sword sect was shaken. All the higher-ups walked out one after another. When they saw the demonic beasts running towards them from afar, their faces turned pale with fright. The Azure Sword sect hurriedly raised their sect-protecting formation. However, they were shocked to find that the light from the strange sun in the sky had shattered the formation in an instant. Who is it? Who is it? The elders focused their eyes and saw Jiang Chun flying towards them. He walked leisurely with a smile on his face. When he arrived above the Azure Sword sect's mountain gate, he smiled and asked, Everyone, are you all well? Jiang Chun, what are you trying to do? The higher-ups of the Azure Sword sect were shocked. Although they were angry, their hearts were trembling. What am I trying to do? Are you all blind? Jiang Chun said mockingly. Disband the Azure Sword sect and spare your lives. The rest of you can live. How dare you? Our Azure Sword sect has been around for a long time. How can you destroy it? The elders shouted angrily. However, they realized that the people around them were already retreating. This was because the demonic beast's army had arrived. At the same time, these people knew about Jiang Qin's strength. The Azure Sword sect had lost a few faction leaders and even their Emperor Realm cultivators in the canyon. How could the Azure Sword sect fight against Jiang Qin now? How could they fight against the Beast Tide? All the sects, forces, families, and inheritances in the world are under the control of the Martial Pavilion. They abide by the rules and orders set by the Martial Pavilion. Someone shouted angrily, "Are you ignoring the Martial Pavilion by doing this?" Martial Pavilion? Jiang Qin raised his eyebrows and said coldly, "When I'm rising, what is the Martial Pavilion? I used to look down on the Martial Pavilion. Now it's still the same." Chapter 135. 3,000 years ago. What was the Martial Pavilion in Jiang Qin's eyes? At that time, he was the sky of the godless continent. His words were the decree. Now, although he was reborn and his strength was not as strong as before, his heart had not changed. An invincible heart, an indestructible will, and an unyielding spirit. If the wind and rain could stop him, then Jiang Qin would choose to destroy the four seasons and shatter the sky. "Boss, I'm here." At this moment, the nine nether phoenix roared, flapped its featherless wings, and came to Jiang Qin's side. Without waiting for Jiang Qin to speak, the nine nether phoenix looked at the elders of the Green Sword sect arrogantly and said coldly, "Kneel, kneel and lick." Jiang Qin and Mo Xingtian were stunned and speechless. The nine nether phoenix was still so careless in this kind of situation. Cough, cough. The nine nether phoenix also felt that something was wrong. After a few awkward coughs, it straightened its expression and stroked its hairless head. "Kneel. Submit." "Fellow Taoist Jiang Qin, do you have a way out?" The first elder of the Green Sword sect frowned and sighed. The Green Sword sect has lost two sect masters during this period of time. Even the strongest Grand Elder of the King Realm is dead. Our Green Sword sect is no longer a threat to you. Can you let us go? Jiang Qin nodded inwardly. The first elder was right. However, the Green Sword sect should be responsible for what they had done. "Disband the Green Sword sect," Jiang Qin said softly. "From now on, there will be no more Green Sword sect. Is that the only way?" The first elder of the Green Sword sect asked, a trace of helplessness and sadness flashing in his eyes. He regretted it. If he had not clashed with Jiang Qin, if he had not attacked Jiang Qin, the Green Sword sect would not have fallen to such a state. And now, all of this, in the end, was the Green Sword sect's own fault. In fact, the Green Sword sect should feel lucky that Jiang Qin was not someone who would kill indiscriminately. Otherwise, there was no need for Jiang Qin to make a move tonight. Just the Beast Tide alone was enough to flatten the Azure Sword sect. Tomorrow, I will announce the dissolution of the Azure Sword clan. After a few breaths, the first elder sighed a few times. He had no choice but to agree to Jiang Qin's request. As for Jiang Qin, he looked meaningfully at the upper echelons of the Green Sword sect and coldly reminded them, "You'd better not play any tricks or else die." After saying that, Jiang Qin turned around and the brilliant sun in the sky disappeared. Like a ghost, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Mo Xingtian and the nine nether phoenix were dumbfounded. After causing such a huge commotion, it ended just like that? However, a few breaths later, Jiang Qin transmitted his voiceover. "What are you standing there for?" Of the 6 great sects, there are still 5 sects to visit. "That's enough. I'm coming." The nine nether phoenix rubbed her fists, her face full of excitement. He roared and immediately chased after Su Ke with a group of ferocious beasts. A look of anticipation flashed across Mo Xingtian's eyes. He wanted to see what kind of storm Jiang Qin would cause this time. After leaving the Green Sword sect, Jiang Qin went all the way north. After crossing MT 30,000, he traveled for 6,000 miles. He was almost out of the solitary North City. Finally, when dawn was about to break, he stopped. In front of him stood a group of mountains. In the middle of the mountains, there was a huge lake. On the lake, there were buildings and a door with the words Chongo written on it. At this moment, It was one of the 6 great sects, the Chang'e sect. I wonder if you're still here, Jiang Chen said softly, recalling the disciple of the Chang'e sect in the Jiogong tomb. Jiang Chen had a high opinion of that guy. He cultivated in both dark arts and had the shadow Dao spirit. If he grew up, he would definitely be the king of assassins. However, if that person dared to appear today, Jiang Chen would definitely kill him. Fellow cultivator, you're here? At this moment, before Jiang Chen could attack, a middle-aged man in white flew up from the Chang'e sect and stood in front of Jiang Chen. Oh, you knew I would come? Jiang Chen said in surprise. You've caused such a big commotion. How could I not know? The middle-aged man smiled bitterly and said, the Green Sword sect will be disbanded tomorrow, and my Chang'e sect should be the same, right? If the Chang'e sect also disbands, then I can let bygones be bygones. Jiang Chen nodded and said, but I want one person. The person you want has already left. The middle-aged man said, he is the eldest disciple of my Chang'e sect, Mu Xingyun. His talent is the strongest I've ever seen in my life. He cultivates in both dark arts and is destined to rise brilliantly. How can my small Chang'e sect tolerate him? Hearing this, Jiang Chen couldn't help but frown. He stared at the middle-aged man and said, if you lie to me, you know what will happen to you. He left and went to the Burning Heaven Academy. The middle-aged man said, after leaving the Jiogong tomb, he left. At this moment, Jiang Chen was also very helpless. He probed the middle-aged man's mental fluctuations and found that he wasn't lying. Then, it was definitely impossible to kill Mu Xingyun today. Young Master Chen seems to be a disciple of the Burning Heaven Academy. Jiang Chen thought that he would ask young Master Chen to inquire about it. In any case, it wouldn't be long before Jiang Chen went to the Sifang Divine Courtyard, which was very close to the Burning Heaven Academy. At that time, there would be plenty of opportunities to kill Mu Xingyun. If that's the case, then so be it. Jiang Chen whispered and then left. Next, Jiang Chen brought the 9 Nether Phoenix and a group of ferocious beasts to visit the other 4 sections. Surprisingly, these 4 sects all agreed to disband. The next day, at noon, Jiang Chen stood in the air with a frown. At the side, the 9 Nether Phoenix was speechless. It flapped its featherless wings in boredom and said, it's over just like that? The 6 major sects are all disbanded? No. Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes and said, they won't disband. Not a single one of them. When these words came out, the 9 Nether Phoenix couldn't help but be stunned, and Mo Xingtian was even more puzzled. Is there such a coincidence? The 6 major sects are so unified that they all agree to disband? Jiang Chen sneered. Playing tricks with me? Okay, I'll play with you to the end. At this moment, in solitary North City, Bai Fengyu, who was in a broken restaurant, used the master and disciple contract to send a message to Jiang Chen. The Martial Pavilion in solitary North City had already ordered to eliminate Jiang Chen. Moreover, Jiang Chen also learned that all the experts in the 6 major sects had gathered at the Martial Pavilion not long ago. Now, all the experts in the solitary North City area had gathered, and all of this was for Jiang Chen. As expected, Jiang Chen chuckled. The real battle has just begun. After saying that, Jiang Chen looked at the direction of solitary North City, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He pointed ahead and said, battle. Chapter 136. At this moment, everyone set off. Demons danced in the sky, while beasts jumped on the ground. Jiang Chen, 9 Serenity Phoenix, Mo Xingtian, and she traveled alone at the front. 30 minutes later, in solitary North City, on the city wall, the Martial Pavilion Master of solitary North City led a group of high-level powerhouses from the 6 major sections. They looked into the distance, looking nervous. Some of them were even trembling. Suddenly, someone exclaimed, because they saw a Zhuoshaning the size of a small mountain flying through the air. It spread its wings and soared high like a black cloud. Following that, many beasts rushed over from the back. Rumbling sounds came from the ground as beasts stepped on the ground. In front of the beasts, Jiang Chen seemed inconspicuous and was drowned by the beasts. However, Everyone on the city wall locked their eyes on Jiang Chun. He is finally here. Once upon a time, the six major sects were forced to such a state. We can only win this battle. We cannot lose. Everyone sighed and was even more nervous. They knew very well that there were only two possibilities for today's battle, dead or alive. Today, I announce my identity as the Martial Pavilion Master of Solitary North City to the world. Bastard Jiang Chun, you've committed all kinds of crimes. He destroyed the three major sects in Qingyan Town and forced the six major sects in Solitary North City to disband. His hands are stained with blood, and he is unpardonable. Kill him. At this moment, the voice of the Martial Pavilion Master of Solitary North City sounded like thunder. Jiang Chun heard it very clearly, but he did not care at all. What was wrong with what he had done? Could it be that only you can use your sword, and I'm not allowed to kill? Those who kill should be killed. Jiang Chun understood this. Everyone in the world understood it too. What righteous words did he use to crown himself with? Everyone in the world had eyes. I gave you a chance before, but you didn't know how to cherish it. Since that's the case, I'll destroy you. At this moment, Jiang Chun said softly. His voice was not loud, but it was mixed with majestic mental strength. Like an invisible thunder, it resounded in everyone's ears, hearts, and even souls. One, accompanied by a thunderous roar, a purple-gold vine grew out from the sea of demonic beasts. The leaves were lush and luxuriant, flickering with divine light. Every leaf was covered with vein patterns, as if they were formed by the great Tao. As Jiang Chun waved his arm, the emperor's vine shook. Deafening explosions could be heard as the emperor's vines extended like thousands of arms, crushing down on the city wall. At the same time, the demonic beasts in the air and on the ground spat out rays of light from their mouths. There were even some unique demonic beasts that were using martial techniques. Just like a violent storm, the city walls of Solitary North City were submerged in the blink of an eye. Activate the array. The Martial Pavilion Master shouted, and Solitary North City's Great City Defense Array rose. This formation was Earth rank. Boom, boom. At this moment, a sky full of attacks fell and bombarded the colorful light screen of the array. The explosion was like thunder, and it was even more like the sound of an ancient bell, shocking everyone. An Earth rank array? Jiang Chun narrowed his eyes, and the power of heaven and earth in his body surged into the Emperor's vine. Instantly, the Emperor's vine shone brightly, and the arms formed by the vines converged into one. What is that? Is that the arm of the heavens? Someone exclaimed. A thick arm that looked like a heavenly pillar, shining with purple gold light, descended from the sky. The Emperor's chi exploded, and with one palm, the Great City Defense Array's barrier collapsed. There were a few people with weaker cultivation, and their chi and blood were in turmoil from the impact. Their faces turned pale, and they spat out blood from their mouths. Kill. Masters and guests of the various sects, attack. Revered elders and guests of the martial arts pavilion, kill Jiang Chun at all costs. On the city wall, the people saw that the situation was not good, and they immediately shouted. In an instant, more than 100 people flew up from behind the city wall, and their cultivation levels were all above intermediate zone realm. Accompanied by a series of battle cries, these hundreds of people rushed out of the city and fought fiercely with many demonic beasts in the blink of an eye. However, Jiang Chun did not care about this. He stepped in the air, and the Emperor's vine behind him danced as he walked toward the city wall. Jiang Chun, you're dead. I'll kill you. Then I'll destroy the entire sect. You, including the people around you, they'll all die. On the city wall, the people roared, and the powerful cultivators attacked. The Martial Pavilion Master took the lead and charged toward Jiang Chun. So many people just for Jiang Chun? That kid looks like he's only 17 or 18 years old, but he's so powerful. In the city, some people were watching the battle, and they were shocked and moved. At this moment, two men and a woman walked out of a shabby restaurant. The man was a little fatty, and he looked honest and had a smile on his face. As for the woman, one was beautiful, and the other was charming and seductive. The three of them were Jianglu, Bai Fengyu, and Nayland Mayer. Master is going to go on a killing spree today. Nayland Mayer giggled. She bit her finger and blinked her seductive eyes. I'm really looking forward to it. Coquettish fox. Bai Fengyu cursed in her heart. Ever since she had this junior sister, she had been unhappy. She always thought that one day her master would be abducted by Nayland Mayer. I say, let's hurry up. Boss is already fighting outside. Jianglu wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. These few days, Bai Fengyu and Nayland Mayer had quarreled a lot. Screech. Suddenly, before the three of them reached the city wall, a long cry came from outside the city. What's that? A phoenix? No, it's different from a phoenix. Inside the city, cries of surprise filled the air. Even Jianglu and the other two were stunned. They stood there in a daze, looking at the sky outside the city. A divine bird that looked like a phoenix, but was even more seductive than a phoenix. And this was Jiang Chen's second soul, the undying bird. Kill. At this moment outside the city, Jiang Chen was fighting the experts of the 6 major sects alone, as well as the martial pavilion master. Purplish gold vines wrapped around his body as if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. They blocked everyone's attacks and even neutralized them. In the sky, the undying bird danced, scattering rays of light and ripples. These rays of light landed on Jiang Chen's body like an inextinguishable fire, constantly healing Jiang Chen's injuries. His strong physical body, under the condensation of the stars, and the endless power of heaven and earth. His mental strength was superb. He was fighting against all of them alone. Everyone was shocked. Their cultivation levels were much higher than Jiang Chen's. But now, with everyone joining forces, Jiang Chen did not show any signs of being defeated. In fact, during this period of time, someone's chest had been pierced by the Emperor's vines. There were also people who were burned to death by the flames of the undying bird. From today onwards, Qingyun Town, solitary North City, liberated. Jiang Chen focused his eyes and formed seals with both hands. Thousands of vines turned into arms and suppressed the martial pavilion master. Immediately after, Jiang Chen waved his hand, and the undying bird Dao soul in the sky let out a long cry. Under the flapping of its flaming wings, flaming feathers shot downward. Chapter 137. Poof! Boom! Muffled booms and explosions rang out as vines and flames mixed together. Shenxi's feathers even floated down from the sky. Fresh blood bloomed like cherry blossoms. Till there were also lives like withered leaves and withered flowers. No one could resist Jiang Chen's attack. In just 10 breaths' time, all the experts of the 6 sects were annihilated. Only the martial pavilion master was suppressed on the ground. He struggled to get up with a ferocious expression. He looked up at Jiang Chen and roared, "Going against the martial pavilion. You're courting death. Who do you think is courting death?" At this moment, Nayland Mayer appeared on the city wall with a charming smile, but her voice was as cold as ice. She stared at the martial pavilion master in solitary North City and asked seriously, "Can you represent the martial pavilion?" "I." The person opened his mouth, but did not know what to say. Yes, what could he represent? He was just a martial pavilion master in a remote and desolate place like solitary North City. With this identity, he might not even have a foothold or the right to speak in those prosperous places outside. Moreover, the person who asked him this question had an extraordinary identity. "You can't represent the martial pavilion, but I can," Nayland Mayer said softly, glancing at the martial pavilion master on the ground and said, "Kill yourself." "Yes." The person was lonely and nodded blankly. Then, under Jiang Chen's surprised gaze, he actually destroyed his own cultivation and cut off his life. He killed himself. "My second disciple, who are you?" Jiang Chen looked at Nayland Mayer with a faint smile and said, "I don't need your help in this battle, but I just want it." Nayland Mayer's tone instantly became coquettish, and she even winked at Jiang Chun. Want it? There's so many people here. It's not appropriate, right? Jiang Chen's face turned red, looking very awkward. When Nayland Mayer heard this, she was stunned for a moment. Then, she blushed. She knew that she had been flirted with by Jiang Chun. The battle outside the city was still going on, but to Jiang Chun, this battle was already over. The experts of the 6 major sects were all annihilated. The pavilion master of the Martial Pavilion in solitary North City committed suicide because of Nayland Mayer's words. Thus, the matter of Bega City had come to an end. However, Jiang Chun knew better than anyone that this matter would not end just like that. Solitary North City was remote, and the Martial Pavilion headquarters would not make a big fuss over such a small matter. However, as the situation developed, the Martial Pavilion's headquarters would definitely become aware of it, and even become angry. At that time, Jiang Chun would not be facing ordinary cultivators, but those who stood at the peak of the world. Stop fighting. Let's disperse. After a few breaths, Jiang Chun waved his hand and ordered the 9 nether phoenix to disperse the demonic beasts. As for the 6 major sects consecrators and guest elders, Jiang Chun did not kill them and allowed them to leave safely. At this moment, the people in the city walked out. When they saw the ground outside the city dyed red with blood and the corpses that littered the ground, they were all moved. When they saw that Jiang Chun was safe and sound, their hearts palpitated even more. He really did it? He annihilated the pavilion master of the Martial Pavilion in solitary North City and the higher-ups of the 6 major sects. From now on, unless the Martial Pavilion headquarters sends someone down, he is the king of solitary North City. Jiang Chun did not care about the crowd's thoughts at all. He ordered Mo Xingtian to make a trip to the 6 major sects, took away all their resources, and disbanded the 6 major sects. As for the disciples of the 6 major sects, Jiang Chun did not make things difficult for them and allowed them to leave. Just like that, 3 days later. During these 3 days, Jiang Chun was very relaxed. When he had nothing to do, he would cultivate. When he was bored, he would find someone to chat with. Of course, during this period, he could not avoid being teased by Nayland Mayer. In these 3 days, Jiang Chun's cultivation had improved a lot. He was about to break through to the upper zone realm. Moreover, as long as Nayland Mayer was willing to dance with him, Jiang Chun could achieve a breakthrough in an instant. Unfortunately, Nayland Mayer was not willing to do so. If you want me to dance, you can only do so if you become the owner of this restaurant. Every time he thought of Nayland Mayer's words, Jiang Chun would tremble all over. Become the owner of this restaurant? How could Jiang Chun not know what she meant? However, how could Jiang Chun agree to it? At least, Jiang Chun would not agree to it now. On the 4th day, Jiang Chun was chatting with Jiang Liu and the others on the 3rd floor. He was very relaxed as he drank some wine. However, at this moment, Quang Run, Yi Mingyi, and Marquis Begu walked up. The 3 of you are together. What's the matter? Jiang Chun asked with a smile. Of course. Quang Rin's face darkened. He said, Why aren't you going to the Sifang Divine Courtyard? The higher-ups have ordered you to be there in 10 days. I'm busy. Jiang Chun muttered as he stared at Quang Rin. He could not see through him. In the past, Jiang Chun thought that Quang Rin was just a crazy master. Later, Jiang Chun thought that Quang Rin was a crazy master. But now, Jiang Chun was not sure. Moreover, Jiang Chun also found that Marquis Begu was also very strange. There was often a faintly discernible aura on his body that seemed to be able to conceal the heavenly Tao and conceal his own aura. This meant that Marquis Begu's cultivation was not as simple as it seemed. You should hurry to the Sifang Divine Courtyard. Marquis Begu smiled bitterly. If you don't leave now, the people from the Martial Pavilion will be here. You destroyed the Martial Pavilion in solitary Begu City. This is not a serious matter, but you crippled Luo Tianchong. This matter has been known by Lin Lang Wentian. He is furious now. Yi Minji said in a low voice, It's not convenient for us to protect you. Only the Sifang Divine Courtyard can save your life. Hearing this, Jiang Chun could not help but be surprised. He heard that Yi Minji, Quang Run, and Marquis Begu had the ability to protect him. However, it seemed that for some reason, the three of them were not too conspicuous. Therefore, they could not protect him. The three of you, what is your cultivation? Jiang Chen's eyes flashed. He activated the lunisolar eye to see clearly. Don't look. What cultivation realm can the three of us be? Quang Ren said, Are we the same as that old man Mo Yuan's? Hearing this, Jiang Chen was shocked. He knew Mo Yuan's cultivation. He was an expert who was about to become a god. Now, the three of them were the same cultivation realm as Mo Yuan. This was not appropriate, right? Thinking back, Jiang Chun had suppressed Marquis Bega before. Could be. These three guys have been teasing him? Thinking of this, Jiang Chen's face darkened. He said in a muffled voice, You guys are really something. Hurry up, we'll leave today. Quang Run urged. The people from the Martial Pavilion will be here tomorrow. Then, what about the Chuanzun sect? Jiang Chen said worriedly. Your second disciple can protect the Chuanzun sect. Yi Minji had a strange expression and asked, Don't tell me you don't know Nayland Mayer's identity. Chapter 138. Jiang Chun was stunned for a moment. Up until now, he still didn't know who Nayland Mayer was. Every time he asked, Nayland Mayer refused to tell him. She always found all kinds of excuses to change the topic. Big Dipper Star Ocean, Miss Tianxin Clan. Madman smiled and said, This identity is good enough, right? Big Dipper Star Ocean, Tianxin Clan, Jiang Chun had heard of them. However, that was a long time ago. It had been more than 3,000 years. At that time, the Tianxin Clan didn't seem to be that powerful. At least in Jiang Chen's memory, the Tianxin Clan wasn't strong. The previous patriarch of the Tianxin Clan, Tianxin Hailan, was the main wife of Lin Lang Wentian, Marquis Begu added. This time, Jiang Chun was relieved. No wonder Nayland Mayer could make the Martial Pavilion master of Bega's city commit suicide with just one sentence. No wonder she dared to say that she could protect the Chuanzun sect. So that's how it was? This relationship is really complicated. Jiang Chen held his forehead and had a headache. In the future, I will definitely go to war with the Martial Pavilion. What about Nayland Mayer? Me? I don't care. Nayland Mayer suddenly walked up and blinked her beautiful eyes, but said very seriously, I really hope that you can destroy the Martial Pavilion. The previous patriarch of the Tianxin clan was the main wife of Lin Lang Wentian, and Nayland Mayer was the young miss of the Tianxin clan. Logically speaking, as the young miss of the Tianxin clan, she should be on the side of the Martial Pavilion. But now, Nayland Mayer hoped that Jiang Chun could destroy the Martial Pavilion. What was going on here? At the same time, Jiang Chun also realized a problem. Nayland Mayer's surname was not Tianxin. You should go and ask her yourself. As outsiders, it's hard for us to tell you. Madman laughed. Then, with a serious expression, he reminded, Let's go. If we don't leave now, it will be too late. Okay. Jiang Chun also realized the seriousness of the situation. After nodding, he called everyone to move. Nayland Mayer also left. She had already taken care of the restaurant. After that, Jiang Chen's group left through the back door of Solitary North City and rushed towards the Quadrangle Divine Courtyard. The Quadrangle Divine Institute was very far away from Solitary North City. During this period of time, they were more than 30,000 miles away, separated by the 100,000 mountains in 3 cities, with the speed of Jiang Chun and the others. Even if they flew without rest, it would still take them 5 days. These 5 days were undoubtedly torture for Jiang Chun. If they were to encounter the experts sent by the Martial Pavilion in these 5 days, they would be killed by the Martial Pavilion. Needless to say, Jiang Chun was dead for sure. Boss, can we also enter the Quadrangle Divine Institute? Jiang Lu asked. Of course. Jiang Chun smiled and nodded. I'm going there to deliver something. To the Quadrangle Divine Institute. It's a kind of gift. Then after reaching the Quadrangle Divine Institute, what are we going to do? Are we really going to stay in the Quadrangle Divine Institute? Bai Fengyu frowned and said, I feel more comfortable in the Chuanzuan sect. I'm free and no one cares about me. Then you go back to the Chuanzuan sect. Jiang Chen said mockingly. The few of us can go to the Quadrangle Divine Institute. Bai Fengyu immediately rolled her eyes and looked at Nayland Mayer with deep meaning, muttering, No, I have to watch over you. Otherwise, if you are kidnapped one day, I won't have a master. In terms of appearance, Bai Fengyu was naturally a little better than Nayland Mayer. But that was only a little. In terms of figure, Bai Fengyu fine, admit defeat. Jiang Lu, who was at the side, curled his lips and thought, If you like it, just say it. Why are you doing this? Jiang Lu, we're going to pass by Qin Creek, right? Jiang Chen suddenly asked. Hearing that, Jiang Lu was startled. A trace of sadness flashed past his eyes. He and Jiang Chun were both kicked out of the Qin Creek Jiang family and were abandoned. Jiang Lu was still all right. His status in the Jiang family was not high. Even if he was kicked out, he did not feel anything. But Jiang Chun was the young patriarch of the Qin Creek Jiang family. Boss, we will definitely return to the Qin Creek Jiang family. Jiang Lu said solemnly. We will return. Jiang Chen nodded his head. Not only will we return in glory, we will also make them beg us to return. When Bai Fengyu and the rest heard that, they looked at Jiang Chun and Jiang Lu curiously. They did not know that the two of them were actually from the Qin Creek Jiang family. One must know that the Qin Creek Jiang family was considered a top family. In terms of foundation, they were comparable to the White Emperor's city. Why did the dignified Qin Creek Jiang family's young patriarch run out? Nayland Mayer giggled. Were you kicked out? Don't mention it. Mo Xingtian said coldly. Impudent. He is your master. Jiang Chun waved his hand, not minding. In fact, Jiang Chun was rejoicing. At that time, if not for the original owner of this body being kicked out of the Jiang family, he might not have been able to reincarnate. Of course, all of this was uncertain, but at least Jiang Chun felt good. That was enough. The group continued forward, and after crossing over 100,000 mountains, the silhouette of a city appeared in the horizon ahead. It was like a ferocious beast crawling on the ground. Looking from afar, there was a kind of huge atmosphere. Luotian City. Bai Fengyu introduced. According to legends, the first-generation city, Lord of Luotian City, had already become a god, and was called Luotian, and was in charge of the 3,000 weak waters of the god realm. Ah, really? Jiang Chun was stunned, and almost laughed out loud. Luotian, of course Jiang Chen knew. However, in the god realm of the nine heavens, Luotian was not doing very well. What was in charge of the 3,000 weak waters, Luotian in the god realm of the nine heavens, was just a person who poured tea and water. Maybe he is in charge of the 3,000 pots of tea, Jiang Chen thought, and said, Let's go in and take a look, we can take a rest. Jiang Chun did not have anything to do on the road. After all, he had condensed a heavenly star, and the chi of heaven and earth in his body would never dry up. Even if he was rushing nonstop, he would not feel tired. However, Jiang Lu and the rest were different. After rushing for days, the spiritual energy in their body was almost exhausted, and now they needed to rest. After that, the few of them continued forward, and after half an incense stick's time, they entered Luotian City. Luotian City was very grand, majestic. Its scale was not something big a city could compare to. There were many people coming and going on the streets, and there was no lack of king realm cultivators. On both sides of the street, there were stalls and restaurants, and there was a hubbub of voices. It's so lively. Jiang Lu looked around. In his impression, apart from the Jiang family, this was the most lively place. Let's find a place to rest, Jiang Chen said, and casually found an inn and checked in. After entering the room, Jiang Chun wanted to cultivate, but he heard a few fighting sounds coming from outside. Jiang Chen did not care at first. After all, where there were people, there would be Jiang Hu, and fighting and collisions were normal. However, he could feel that the person fighting outside was Jiang Lu. Jiang Chen pushed the door open and walked out. He happened to see Jiang Lu and a one-eyed man confronting each other in the yard. Jiang Lu's cultivation had broken through to the Zhong realm, and he had the sacred body of antiquity, so his combat strength was extraordinary. However, the one-eyed man's cultivation had reached the lower level of the king realm, and Jiang Chun did not have the upper hand. In fact, he was at a disadvantage. Chapter 139. Jiang Lu, what's going on? Jiang Chun asked. He knew that Jiang Lu was an honest person and would not cause trouble. This guy wants my room, Jiang Lu said in a low voice. We've already paid for the room, but he insisted that I give it to him. I was so angry that we started fighting. Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows and looked at the one-eyed man. What do you mean? Humph. My young master wants to stay here. The one-eyed man raised his chin and said arrogantly, there are no more rooms in this inn, so you have to give it up. Jiang Chun could not help but chuckle at such overbearing words. I can give it up, but do you have the right? You're just a zone realm cultivator. How arrogant. The one-eyed man said contemptuously. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the one-eyed man punched out. Within the fist, a ferocious tiger was roaring. Beside it, numerous runes had appeared. The runes were like stars, and as they flickered, they turned into fire snakes. The fire snakes accompanied the fist aura and attacked fiercely, drowning Jiang Chun in an instant. Humph! Listen to me and give up your room, and you won't end up like this, the one-eyed man said coldly, thinking that Jiang Chun had been suppressed. Bang! However, after a muffled sound, the fire snake shrouding Jiang Chun and the radiance of his fist were smashed. They turned into spiritual power that filled the air and dissipated into nothingness. Jiang Chun was not injured at all. Even his clothes were not damaged. He looked at the one-eyed man and asked again, do you have the right? At this moment, the one-eyed man was shocked. With his cultivation of the Emperor realm and martial arts, he could not take down Jiang Chun. Looking at the unharmed Jiang Chun, the one-eyed man thought that he had kicked an iron plate today. But so what? At the thought of his young master, the one-eyed man was suddenly full of confidence. Let me give you a piece of advice. As long as you give up a room, this matter can be resolved. Otherwise, when my young master arrives, all of you will be embarrassed. The one-eyed man's voice was not only cold, it was also filled with contempt. This attitude and words made Jiang Chun very unhappy. However, before he could make a move, Bai Fengyu walked out from another room. She furrowed her brows and shouted with a frosty voice, Get lost! Perfect! My family's young master is still lacking a maid. The one-eyed man saw Bai Fengyu's appearance and was extremely moved. His eyes flashed with greed and desire, and these words directly infuriated Bai Fengyu. Wang! In an instant, the surrounding air began to distort and a cold aura spread out. Even the ground was covered in a layer of frost. I seal, Bai Fengyu lightly shouted. She raised her snow-white hand, and a terrifying power of extreme erupted. Frost spread out like an ice dragon, coiling around the one-eyed man's body. You're only in the zone realm, the one-eyed man said contemptuously. The spiritual power in his body erupted, trying to shatter the frost on his body. However, he was horrified to find that the frost was not ordinary. It seemed to not melt for 10,000 years, and even the spiritual power in his body was frozen. Bang! In the next moment, without waiting for him to speak, Bai Fengyu struck out with her palm and sent the one-eyed man flying to the entrance of the backyard. Who dares to touch my people? Just as the one-eyed man rolled on the ground, a delicate-looking youth walked in. After seeing the one-eyed man on the ground, a trace of anger flashed in the youth's eyes. Look after your dog. Don't bring it out to bite people, Bai Fengyu shouted. However, suddenly, Bai Fengyu noticed that Jiang Lu and Jiang Chen's expressions were not right. Even the youth who had just walked in had a strange expression. Jiang Luyin, it's you. After a few breaths, Jiang Chen and Jiang Lu spoke at the same time. When they looked at the youth, there was a trace of anger in their eyes. I really didn't expect to meet you two trash here, Jiang Luyin said contemptuously. After being expelled from the Jiang family, you're doing well outside. It's a pity that you'll always bear the word abandon. Jiang Luyin, like Jiang Chun and Jiang Lu, was a member of the Jiang family of Qinchuan. Moreover, Jiang Luyin was the great elder's son. After Jiang Chun was expelled from the Jiang family, the great elder's faction gradually grew stronger. Not only did they suppress the Jiang family's patriarch, which was Jiang Qin's father, they even wanted to usurp the throne. Back then, when Jiang Chun was expelled from the Jiang family, the great elder's faction already had real power. Otherwise, with Jiang Qin's father's status as the patriarch of the Jiang family, how could he expel his own son? Now, looking at Jiang Luyin again, Jiang Qin could feel that the Jiang family had changed hands. I'm already the Jiang family's young patriarch. From now on, the Jiang family will be under my control, Jiang Luyin said arrogantly. And you are just an abandoned child. There will only be one Jiang family's young patriarch forever, and that is my boss, Jiang Chun. Jiang Lu roared, his eyes red. It was obvious that he was furious. Jiang Chun was very calm. Looking at Jiang Luyin, he said, seeing that we're both from the Jiang family, I'll spare you today. You leave. However, after saying this, Jiang Luyin laughed maniacally. His eyes and expression were full of contempt and sarcasm. You? Who do you think you are? Jiang Luyin said mockingly. Just an abandoned child. Hearing this, Jiang Chen couldn't help but frown. Jiang Luyin kept mentioning the word abandoned child several times. This was mocking and insulting him. No matter how good Jiang Chen's temper was, he couldn't help it. What's more, Jiang Chen's temper had never been good. Since you don't want to leave, I'll send you off, Jiang Chun said softly, and a breeze appeared under his feet. With a step, he appeared in front of Jiang Luyin. Jiang Luyin was shocked. He had the cultivation of the king realm, but he couldn't see how Jiang Chen walked in front of him. Before he could react, Jiang Chen's fist landed on Jiang Luyin's body, as if it was made of gold. Bang! Accompanied by a muffled sound, Jiang Luyin flew out like a kite with a broken string, blood splattering along the way. It wasn't until he fell to the ground that Jiang Chun said lightly, "Young patriarch of the Jiang family, if he's like you then, Jiang Chun is too weak." You! Jiang Luyin shouted angrily. He struggled to get up, the killing intent in his eyes skyrocketing. He stared at Jiang Chun for a long time but didn't say a word. He turned and left. Boss, I'm afraid this kid is going to find help, Jiang Luyin said worriedly. After Luotian City is Qinchuan boundary. If Jiang Luyin wants to find help, he can ask the experts of the Jiang family to come here within a day. So what? Jiang Chen looked like he didn't care. He said, "Are my two apprentices useless? Others can call for help, but I can't?" Chapter 140. Luotian City was very close to Qin Creek's Jiang family. Jiang Luyin had suffered a loss here, and would definitely not let it go. Perhaps he had already transferred people from the Jiang family over. Jiang Chun did not mind at all, not to mention that he was a member of the Jiang family. Even if the Jiang family did not like him, they would not kill him. Moreover, with Bai Fengyu and Nailan Mei's help, Jiang Chun didn't fear anyone when it came to asking for help. "Where is Nailan Mei?" Jiang Chun asked. Ever since they entered the inn, Nailan Mei seemed to have disappeared. Even during the fight just now, he did not see her. "I think she went out shopping," Jiang Luyin muttered. "That brat, if she went out shopping, she would probably charm a lot of people." What a disaster. Jiang Chun laughed bitterly. With Nailan Mei's natural charm, if she were to go out alone, there was no need to even think about it. She would definitely cause trouble. Of course, she had King of Darkness by her side, so there was no need to worry. Half a day later, when Jiang Chun was cultivating in his room, Nailan Mei opened the door and poked her head out, giggling. "Master, someone is looking for you outside." "Looking for me?" Jiang Chun was stunned. This was his first time in Luotian City, and he had no relatives or friends. Who would look for him? Could it be Jiang Luyin? But calculating the time, even if Jiang Luyin went to the Jiang family to ask for help, it would not be so fast. "Who was looking for me?" Jiang Chun stood up with a puzzled look. When he walked out of the room and saw a group of youths standing in the courtyard, Jiang Chen's face darkened. You are Jiang Chen, her master? That's right. It's you, right? The group of people looked aggressive as they stared at Jiang Chun, inquiring about his identity. Jiang Chun was naturally fearless and nodded. Yes. Then it's easy. Master, your disciple and I are fated to meet. I hope Grandmaster can fulfill my wish. Master, I'm the young master of the Martial Emperor Mountain. In terms of status, I'm more than qualified to be your disciple's disciple. If you agree, the Martial Emperor Mountain will protect you from now on. At this moment, the group of youths spoke one after another, competing to be the first to introduce themselves. Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. He thought that these people were here to cause trouble. Who would have thought that he was here to propose marriage? Wiping the cold sweat from his forehead, Jiang Chun glanced at Nayland Mayer and said, From now on, you're not allowed to go out alone. Oh! Nayland Mayer giggled as she nodded her head. Then what about these people? I'm just one person. I'm not enough for them to share. What are you talking about? Jiang Chun was furious. He glared at the group of youngsters and said, He's my disciple. I won't give him to you. As he spoke, Jiang Chun held Nayland Mayer's hand and turned to enter the room. With a loud bang, the door was closed. Outside the door, the group of youngsters was stunned. After looking at each other for a while, they rushed toward Jiang Chen's room. Luckily, Jiang Chen was prepared. The moment he entered the room, he set up an array to block the group of people outside. Master, we can talk about it. A grown girl can't be kept at home. Your disciple will get married sooner or later. Outside the door, the group of people shouted. Some of them even threatened to kill themselves. This gave Jiang Chen a headache. He sat on the chair and covered his forehead. He pointed to the door and said, What do you think we should do? Nayland Mayer felt wronged. She pouted and twisted the corner of her clothes. She blinked her big watery eyes and said weakly, I don't know. Femme fatale. Jiang Chen's face darkened. He really didn't know what to do. After all, the group of youngsters outside were all reputable figures in the vicinity. Putting everything else aside, the young master of the Martial King Mountain alone had an extraordinary status. If he chased these people away forcefully, he would definitely offend them. Furthermore, Jiang Chun had already sensed that more than half of the group of youngsters outside were King Realm cultivators. No matter how powerful Jiang Chun was, he couldn't chase away so many King Realm cultivators alone. In fact, if he wasn't careful, even Jiang Chun would die here. Master! Suddenly, Bai Fengyu rushed into the room anxiously. When he saw Jiang Chun and Nayland Mayer sitting peacefully by the side, he could not help but heave a sigh of relief. You scared me to death. I thought you were... Bai Fengyu's face flushed red. He knew that he was overthinking. What nonsense are you thinking? Jiang Chun rolled his eyes. Ever since he took Nayland Mayer in as his disciple, Bai Fengyu had become more and more petty. It was as if a jar of vinegar had been knocked over. Master, may I ask if that girl just now is also your disciple? Master, you have two such beautiful disciples. You're really ruining heaven's gifts. Why don't you give them to us? At this moment, the group of people outside became agitated again when they saw Bai Fengyu. Hearing this, Bai Fengyu's face darkened. She pushed open the door and threw out the token that represented her identity. Ouch! No one knew who was hit, but when he saw the token, he trembled and smiled embarrassedly. Goodbye, Tisfei. White Emperor's city. Bai Fengyu? What? White Emperor's daughter, Bai Fengyu? At this moment, the others were also shocked and gasped. Although they were all young masters in Luotian City, their status was not bad, and their strength was considered outstanding. But compared to White Emperor City, it was clearly not enough. Goodbye. Sorry to disturb you. Immediately, many people left, but there were still a few people who stayed. Among them were the young lords of the Martial King Mountain, the young lords of the Night Sealing Society, and the young lords of the Everlasting Joy Villa. These people's status was not bad, but compared to White Emperor City, they were much worse. Jiang Chen was puzzled. Could it be that these people were still unwilling to give up? So it's eldest young Mississippi. I am Su Ching Yun of the Marshall King Mountain. I hope eldest young Miss can forgive me for offending you earlier. The young master of the Marshall King Mountain did not leave. Instead, he bowed towards Bai Feng Yu and apologized. Then, the young master of Night Seal Clan, Ning Buong, and the young master of Changle Mountain Villa, Xiao Yixiao, did the same. What's going on? Jiang Chen asked. Marshall King Mountain, Night Seal Clan, and Changle Mountain Villa are all affiliated sects of White Emperor City, Bai Fengyu explained. Looking at the three people, she waved her hand and said, "Leave, don't disturb my master." Hearing this, the three people immediately nodded and planned to leave. However, before they could take a few steps, an angry roar came from outside the inn. "Jiang Chun, you abandoned pawn! Get out here!" Hearing this voice, Jiang Chen's face darkened, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. It was Jiang Liuyan's voice. It was obvious that the other party had invited help. What made Jiang Chen angrier was not that Jiang Liuyan had invited help, but that they had openly called him an abandoned pawn outside the inn. This was simply intolerable. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.